I'd like to call the May meeting of the POA Board of Directors to order. I'm Marty Inkrat, President of the board. Somebody said I better introduce myself, so I am. I'd like to welcome everybody that's here today and everybody that's on the live stream. And just as a reminder, the way it works is all of the topics that we discuss, we do them on the board first. I take any questions or comments from the board, and then I'll turn to anybody here. If they have any questions or comments, they certainly are welcome to express them at the time. The thing that I ask that you do, though, is to be sure to step up to the microphone so that people that are watching on the live stream can hear you. Otherwise, they won't be able to. So with that, we'll get going. I will confirm that we have a quorum present. We have all 7 board members in attendance. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes for our April meeting? Bob, do I have a second?
Second.
And John. So we have a motion and a second to approve the April 19th board minutes. Do I have any discussion?
Yeah, I have to abstain. I wasn't here.
Okay. Anybody else? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of accepting the minutes, please raise your right hand. Vote is 6-0 with 1 abstain. That's Steve, since he wasn't here. Next thing on the agenda is to ratify the vote that we took online to engage with Paradym architecture firm for the Tanasi rebuild project.
Would you explain to the group why we did this and why we take this vote?
Yes, so in the interest of time to get Paradym on board quickly and to get started on the process for the architectural design for the site and the structure, we took a vote so we didn't have to wait till today to engage with them. So we did is we took an electronic vote, and then what we do today is ratify that vote so it is in the minutes of this board.
So I'll make the motion to ratify the board's unanimous electronic vote approving Paradym Studio as the architectural and engineering firm for the Tanasi Clubhouse project.
So I have a motion and a second to ratify the vote of accepting Paradym Studios as our architectural firm for Tanasi. Any further discussion?
Yes. I've been reading in social media that we have selected a building, that we have selected a parking lot, that we have already made that decision, and I would like to ask the board and the community, how can you do that when you haven't had an architect until now? Nothing's been selected, not a thing, except the architect. Questions?
That's right. And I believe we'll have an update. Do we have an update on today on that? Maybe through Chet's update, but even if we don't, Pat's exactly right. I mean, this whole process, as soon as we get anywhere down the road, we'll be communicating it to everybody. So I think they have like a 30, 60, 90% completion as points of decision points. So what we'll do is we will be engaging, or Chet will have a town hall, basically explaining here's what we have to date and gathering any input before we continue further.
And also, since just catching people up, sorry for those people there are property owners on this selection committee. There were property owners that interviewed and recommended Paradym prior to the committee getting it and prior to it coming to the board. So there's been lots of, what was it, Chet, 17 members on this committee so far?
Yeah, 17 members, and anecdotally, we also have made the decision to get a few more ladies on the committee, a couple interior designers, we're going to ask, they haven't agreed to, but we are pursuing to have several other ladies just to have this really sounds sexist, so I'll apologize, a feminine point of view in terms of how we look at this and are looking at it. It's a balanced approach. It's a balanced approach. Thank you. That was the right word I was looking for. It's a balanced, yeah, it's a balanced approach. So that no, I'm just sick of all the golf guys. Anyway, no, we need some more, we need a balanced approach. So yes, we are inviting some other people to join. We're trying real hard not to make it a crowd, but still keep it to a size that's manageable. And all of their input has been fantastic. So the community is well represented in this process.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to the next agenda item, and that is the CEO report. Chet?
So, to the point, it kind of took away from what I was going to say about.
Excuse me,
Microphone.
Chet, we didn't take a vote. You had the first, second, and some discussion.
Oh, I guess maybe we better vote.
We need a vote.
It'd be
Sorry.
a good idea to vote, yeah.
All those
right.
in favor?
So with that, let's vote on approving the ratification of Paradym. All in favor? Raise your right hand. Okay, now we did it. 7-0. Passed. Thanks, Steve, for keeping me on task. All right, now you're up, Chet.
So we kind of took away a little bit of what I was going to report on Tanasi, is that we have indeed have our architect on board. We are finding that we have lots and lots of options and ways that we can look at this and do this. One of the things, to our original point, is we want to do the very best we can within the means that we have. And so the first meeting we had was basically looking at a bunch of different architecture and say, which one of these do you feel fits within our realm? And in that came out, and basically it wasn't just me, it was everybody in the room felt like we needed to have more women involved in terms of especially the interior and how it was functioning and whether it was functioning correctly. Because we have a lot of women golfers, we have a lot of women who are going to use the facilities in terms of dinners and foods and parties and card play and all the other things that go along with how this building will be used, so we felt it was better to do that. But it was an interesting, I guess you could call it a task, an interesting project to go through and look at all these and hear everybody's ideas about designs and too modern, not enough, looks like what we had before, all those kinds of comments coming across, and also looking at space. And I always throw this in because I don't know that everybody hears it, but in all of this, we still are focused on this is our budget, this is all we can spend, this is all we can do. So whatever we need to do within that, that's what we're going to do. One of the other topics that came up is looking at how we're going to use the space. We have from this canal to this canal, what are we going to do with it? And so that's another one of the projects that the designer is looking at, is reviewing that option and where's the best place to plant that building so that we have parking not being out in front of God and everybody, golf course has access and that kind of stuff, boaters have a better place to park instead of being on the back 40 and having to drive their carts or walk for a mile to get to the boat yard. All of those things are being taken into consideration because they've been things that you as the homeowners have asked us. Another update is in the reserve study. We've talked about it ad nauseum. I only wanted to update you to let you know that we have Jim Hinckley specifically now tasked with updating the reserve study software, which will, by the way, be a living, breathing document. So when we get it updated and on the web, it will stay that way until the next budget season or until the next amenity we add, and then it will change again. So there will always be movement in the reserve study, no matter what we do. And it is a definite key that we want to use in the guidance for the budget process. So our first update is going to have to be done fairly soon and get it up on the web fairly soon because budget season is coming. For all those who don't know, that we actually internally start the budget season sometime in July because of all the tasks that we have to achieve to get there. So keep that in mind as we move forward. One of the things that I've been working on, and this kind of plays into several different things, is reviewing the staff, reviewing who we have working for the community, why we do the things we do, what's the premise behind it. And one of the things I came across, which probably many of you already know, but I didn't know, is that the long-term committee, long-term planning committee, put together in 2020, I guess you would call it, let's see what's the term they used for it. Well, it's basically a vision statement for Tellico Village. And in that vision statement, there were just, I mean, if you guys have never read this, I think it's where you can see it, but you need to look at it because it is so good. It really is. And it so defines what I believe that the community wants for the community they moved into, what they paid to move here for. And so we, as the executive staff and employees of that community, want to be sure that we're putting forth that vision, that mission in everything we do. And so you're going to see soon in our emails, and any of you have ever received an email, hopefully from the staff, it should have a signature line. And in that signature line, we're going to put in this piece of this mission and vision statement. And it's going to read specifically that our mission, our tagline, whatever word you want to use, is to enhance and preserve the Tellico Village quality of life, resulting in a lifetime of well-being. That's the goal. That's it. We got to do a lot of things, but that is the goal. And so that will be in all of our signatures. It will be in all of our documentation as we bring people on board and you know, why do we do what we do, all those kinds of questions. That's going to be built into and propagated throughout the community employees to be able to help them understand this is why we do what we do and how we do it. Let's see, moving on to the next exciting topic, trash pickup. So, and the only reason, I mean, I've talked about this ad nauseum, but I wanted to address a couple things. I spoke with the more interesting news first. I spoke with the mayor of Loudoun County, Buddy Bradshaw, and he is going to bring over to our, well, we've given him a spot. It may not be the final resting place, but it is the resting place at Public Works. And he's going to bring over recycling bins, cardboard, paper, plastic, aluminum, and they will bring them in and carry them out, and it will all be for free. There will be no charge to the POA for that. The POA has requested that we keep the can services because we sell those at the end of the year and give those to the garden club. Makes sense, that's what we'll do. He had no problem with that. And it was a great meeting, and Buddy was very, not only willing, but enthusiastic about, yeah, let us do that. Let us get our stuff in there and take care of you in that regard. And so we will now have consistent places for us to recycle outside of the association's dumpsters. Not to put too fine a point on that. And you know, I will say it out loud, the community cannot use the association dumpsters for dumping their own personal trash. Because what that ends up being is the entire community will end up paying for your trash service. And because we're charged extra. Anytime that bin gets where the lid won't close, we're charged additional funds, like $200 a pickup, extra. And so please use the appropriate ways to get your trash picked up. It is in place. Also, in talking with the mayor of Lenoir City, some of you may have seen in the news or in the paper, Lenoir City has just now signed on a new trash pickup process, and everybody will be aghast at the cost, I realize, but they will be paying $10 a month, well, $11, excuse me, $11 a month per home for having their trash pickup. And no, it's a month. I asked that question twice. I kept saying week, and it's not, it's a month. Now, here's all, and everybody's going to go, well, man, that's ridiculous. Why can't we get that? Well, let me go through what they get and, more importantly, what they don't get. Number one, trash is picked up from 6 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, and you have no control over that. Number two, there are no cans. There are no special machines. You can put any crazy thing you want at the street, they'll pick it up and throw it in their truck, but you have to get it to the street. So there will be no cans that you can roll out, any of that kind of stuff. You're on your own. You want a big can? Go buy one. And they have two guys that are on the back of the truck dumping it. It is a local guy with 2 trucks. So he's willing to take that risk. And last but definitely not least, the city has the contract, not the homeowners. Now, what does that mean? That means that the city went to the trash company and said, we want a contract, and I believe it's a little over 3,600 homes in Lenoir City proper. We want a contract for trash pickup for 3,600 homes. What can you do that for? And they gave them a price. So what it comes down to is every month, every homeowner in Lenoir City, whether they use it or not, has a $11 bill on their, in this case, their power bill. And whether they use the trash company or not, they're being billed for it. Now, that's an interesting way of doing it. We have never done that before here. The other thing in that process that's interesting is that they have no contingency plan. He doesn't show up, then the city has to go out and bring trucks and go look and get the trash and take it away. And so there's a lot of things there that normally we would not be necessarily thrilled with if we were to have a contract. This contract setup is exactly opposite of how we have done it here in Tellico Village. And that is, we go out and negotiate a contract for the homeowners, and then it's up to the homeowners to either be a part of that trash process or not. They don't have a choice. I mean, they have a choice, but we can't tell you, you must use this trash service. So at the end of the day, it limits our ability to purchase. If I were to go out and say I have over 6,500 homes that I want you to pick up trash for, I could get a much better price, and I would pay the bill, and I would attach it to your, for sake of argument, I would put it on your water and sewer bill, and you would pay that every month, and we would pay the trash pickup provider. One of the advantages to the trash pickup provider, which also lowers that cost, is he sends out one bill, not 4,500. So there is a great reduction in his cost internally as well. So these are things that we're all thinking about. I presented this to the board and for the board to consider. But there are ways for us to negotiate better prices. And by the way, in our case, we have the same provider for the homeowners as we do for our commercial pickup stuff. That is not the case in Loudoun City. They have, wait for it, Republic picking up their commercial trash. And they've negotiated deals with them. One of the gotchas with the Republic, and it's something that even Lenoir City was lamenting, Loudoun County definitely laments it, is the fact is Republic owns the two dumping stations or two landfills that we have on both sides of us. So no matter what we do, in some way, we're going to be paying Republic. And that's one of the challenges that we have. The one thing I can say is Republic has not been on time once, that I'm aware of anyway, since probably May, but they are picking up trash, and they are getting it done. It may take them a day or two, but they are at least getting it out. And to my original statement, they're not the company I want. They're not the company I would choose for you if I had a real choice. But at least you are getting your trash picked up, and most of you are not having to throw it in the back of your Alexis and take it down to a trash company and dump it. You're just not. So that's the goal that we're trying to keep going until we can find it. Now, we're not married to Republic, and as I've said on several occasions, if we find the right company with the right price, we will drop them in a New York minute, and we have the contract set up to be able to do that. So that's not our problem. We just have to find the right one. Yes, Pat?
I'd like to give, and start all over. There are a lot of people that have moved here in the last year. This has been going on now for about a year. And some of the people haven't gone back to watch the videos of the board meetings, and there's a lot of information going around, and I noticed recently on social media it's began to pop up again. So I want to give a brief cliff notes of the history. It won't take but a minute. First, we had the poor service. We gave them a 30-day notice. That was by the contract. We canceled their service contract. Second, we put out feelers to other trash companies to estimate cost to serve, time to start the service, et cetera. The third thing is that each other competing company had do not compete clauses, so we were not able to obtain those bids because they would not bid. Fourth, no service provider could seamlessly take over our trash pickup immediately. Fifth, we renegotiated a contract with Republic primarily for a couple of reasons. One is that we gave them a one-year contract. We had an immediate exit if we required, and there is a no non-compete clause in there. So that allows us to bid, and which we then now have a year to do so. Seventh, none of these competitions are supplying recycle services. All use a boom truck except for the ones you talked about. There are companies that you can haul your black bags out, get rained on, the raccoons get into and all that. I don't think that's us, but anyway. All will be more expensive than prior and current Republic, and it's primarily due to Republic owns the dump and everybody pays a dump fee except for, or a tipping fee is what they call it, isn't it?
Yes.
Except for Republic. And we have discussed this, and I'm going to use the term here, ad nauseum. For a long, long time, we've had many numerous reports. Still, people enter the conversation late and don't do the research. The implications, and again, this is going to sound harsh, but if you read the social media, the implications to this board is that we have intelligence issues. And there is, from time to time, a call to rush the board meetings, rush the board meetings, and to make sure that what's going on in the general public, we understand as board members. So, all of us being property owners, living the dream of having Republic miss our trash. Being board members, living the dream of having all of you explain to me about what it feels like to have your trash missed. And then living the dream of being a board member to have to go through all of this contract and all of this understanding of why, who, what, when, and do all this research. I'm going to lay out something today that I've been dying to do because I've told for the last year I don't like Republic either. So I want to lay out a hypothetical today, and my hypothetical is I'm going to make a motion on a hypothetical to eliminate Republic trash service tomorrow. No longer can they pick up in Tellico Village starting tomorrow. I'm going to ask for a second, and Rick is... I'm not going to give it to you. No. Okay, so John will hypothetically give me the second. And I'm going to look around here, and we have all had it up to here and further with this. And so they're just as frustrated as I am, and they're going to hypothetically vote yes. Now, Republic cannot pick up here tomorrow. They're gone. Everybody on social media is now tickled to death because you just got rid of Republic. Now, Chet Pillsbury and Clayton Taylor, you might want to come up to the microphone if Chet can't answer the question. How long is it going to be before they pick up my trash on 304 Skiatook Circle? Anybody?
90 to 120 days.
So that means I've got to store trash in my garage for 90 to 120 days. Are we willing to do that? Now, before you answer, as a board member, I'm not willing to make that motion to make you suffer June, July, August, and September.
Well, that would really smell after a while.
I'm not willing to do that. I am sorry. You can just live with me until December, then I'm gone. Put somebody else in here that is willing to make you suffer that long.
The Lexus will smell too.
Yeah.
I don't have a Lexus. I've got a Mercedes. That is the reality, folks. We have positioned ourselves in a very frustrating, aggravating, nasty situation with a company that, in my opinion, is the worst customer service I've ever seen in my life. If it comes to a vote, I can tell you how I'm going to vote. I would not vote to put them in if they promised to do it for free. My personal opinion, they have done us wrong, and I don't know that they can make it up. But if you're reading social media or conversing in wine groups that this board, this group, this staff is not doing everything they can and are not siding with the people of Tellico Village, you're exactly right, because I will not vote to kick out any trash service that's going to leave you in the lurch for the next 4 months. That's what I wanted to say.
Well, fortunately, you're not calling for a vote, because I'd say, point of order, the board doesn't vote on hypotheticals.
Yeah, no,
That's why I repeated it 3 times.
yeah. So, to that point, and that's the point that I've been trying to make all along, is it's not that we're stupid or we think Republic is great. I'm trying to protect you as best I can and take care of the community as best I can until we have the answer that's right for us, both financially and in customer service. One of the things that I have been tasked with early on was evaluating staff members, evaluating processes within the community and how we do business. And I have been working I spent a week with Public Works. I'm going to spend more time with Public Works. But my task is to begin a process of being sure that all of our staff is well-trained, understands what the latest and greatest they need to do, be able to do their job, and that they are giving 100% to the job. And what does that mean in real life? That means that we are stretching every dollar that we have in an appropriate manner. We are spending every minute that we need to be working efficiently to do a better job. And hopefully the combination of those two will again have returns of reducing the cost of running the association. So as I go through this, I am working with the executive staff. We have, Mitzi is going to do a Kaizen study for those who like those terms in Public Works. She's going to start there and work her way through Public Works, and we're going to make changes and advise them on what the better ways of doing things are. We'll evaluate staff and everything about that. But one of the things, and this is an example, and this is not, in case somebody wants to twist my words later, this is not a condemnation of Public Works. This is a fact. Public Works just lost one of their members, a key member, because he was certified in water and sewer. Well, currently there's, 17, 18 members of water and sewer. We now have one person who is certified for water and sewer. We can't operate that way. So we've got to have initiatives to have people trained to be able to do these jobs and be certified to do these jobs. These are all young guys. If we have the anticipation that they're not always going to be looking for a better position, higher up in the ladder, whatever the case may be, and we do a lot of processes of trying to move people up in the company as we have openings, we want to hire from within, for lack of a better word. But the training is necessary for that to be done, and that's true of all associations. In fact, the executive committee, the executive board, 4 of us, are looking at going to a training session or a symposium for large properties. It is specifically based around communities that are 3,000 or more homes throughout the United States. And we're going to sit down with that group and try and understand what's best practice. What are they finding that works, that doesn't work? We will contribute what we've found that works and doesn't work. And that's a very unique group to be able to sit down in one place and really go through stuff. So it's going to be a great educational moment for us. So all of these things are with the pure hope of managing the association better, cleaner, hopefully even cheaper. And those things are all, in my head, important to every homeowner, but I need you to hear, we get that, and that's why I'm doing it. We're trying to do that as best we can to move it forward. It is not a simple process, and for me to not hurt the POA by just going and whacking away at things. It's got to be done correctly and in steps. As an example, I mentioned, I think the last time I was here, that we were talking about removing 11 of the trucks from our cadre of vehicles. So far, that number is at 6 in the process, and 2 are from the golf community and 4 are from Public Works. Well, that process is ongoing, and I need to say here to emphasize this, both golf and Public Works are the ones who offered those trucks to say, look, we've evaluated them. These trucks we don't need as much as we thought we did. We can lose these. And so they're getting the vision. They're getting the vision. They're understanding the mission of what we're trying to accomplish, and they're beginning to move toward that. It's a culture change. I don't care what anybody wants to color it or how you want to color it. It is a culture change. All of that takes time. It's not a magic wand I can wave. And I can't dictate it. It has to be educated. And so that's the process that I'm in the process of, and making good headway, much to my joy and excitement. And let's see, the last thing on my list, I just saved the last and most controversial, and I'll apologize ahead of time to the board, because I know that the Tahitians will now be on your phone. That Kahiti at that particular golf course has made the policy, and I think it's true in all our golf courses, just Kahiti it becomes more prevalent, is that for any round of 4 golfers, there can only be 2 carts. And that is not to save money. Well, that's a lie. It is to save money. It's to keep us from having to maintain the grass at a much higher level, because it's been torn up by 47 carts going over it. And it is not to chase people into using association carts. Use your own. Just keep it down to 2 carts per foursome. And it will reduce the amount of wheels we have on the grass. It will reduce the amount of damage. And many of the people who use their own carts have tractor tires on their golf carts. They're not cart tires like we would use on ours for the grass. So they do a significant amount of damage as they go running across the course. And so we're not at the point of dictating what tractor tires and lift kits you can put on your cart, but we've got to limit the number of tires going across the grass. And so that policy has been put in by the golf community, and I support that particular procedure.
It's effective June 1st, is it not?
That is correct.
So all the signs I've seen on all the courses.
Yeah.
And it is for all of Tellico Village, not just.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Exactly.
saying. It's
All of
just,
Tellico.
Exactly.
Kahiti seems to be the one, and it's fair enough, because apparently there is a lot more cart ownership in Kahiti per capita of homeowners. I believe that's true. I don't know if that's a fact. I haven't actually researched that, but
I think they use carts more for recreation, travel around the community, yeah. So
Yeah.
they're, yeah. And also, if I might give a plug, as long as you're on that, Wells and McClure's, I won't ask Wells. So if you want to know Wells' comments based on this, here's the plug. You have a new host for Golf Talk, and that's me. And then we have Casey and Wells, instead of just having Chris Sykes, they both show up on there. And this month, Wells talks about this issue and the wear and tear. And one of the things he brought up that I thought was really interesting is that on the courses, you either have a mark where he wants you to enter the course, drive on the course, and then exit the course. And if you notice, what I asked him was, do you have to enter and exit where the pole is? And you notice that's the bear spot, right? No, you don't. So you don't have to drive all the way. And in fact, his recommendation was, if you see the bare spot, avoid it, right? Move a little bit, that kind of thing. Okay. I got my plug in.
perfect. All right. Is there anything else, staff? Anything else that I've missed or didn't bring up that you thought I was supposed to and didn't? I knew Beth would not let that go.
The only thing I wanted to add is that once you're finished with Public Works, you do plan to move on to other departments for your analysts.
I apologize that I did not make that clear. the only reason, frankly, that I started with Public Works is because it's the largest department I have and the most money invested in. And so that's why I wanted to start there. And rather than take the easy route, just go to the real problem child or the biggest money going out the door. Whether they're the problem child or not is not really the issue. It's the biggest amount of money going out the door and how we can work on fixing that. Any questions from the board or anyone else?
I had a question, when going back to vehicles, when can we expect to see a vehicle policy that says that here's the positions that get vehicles, here's the type of vehicle, and here's what it can be used for? Personal use, business use only. I think until we get to that level of detail, this could go back to the way it was, where we just have proliferation of vehicles.
We have that policy in place. If you want to stop by the office, I'll show it to you. Beth, I don't know, is that something we'll put on the website? I don't know why we would ever do that, but we can.
Well, I
But
guess-
Russell keeps those in his office. Those are signed by the employees, and it would tell you exactly when and how and where they use those vehicles.
What the uses of them are, what they can use them for, what they cannot use them for. Do they drive them home? Do they leave them at the office when they're not using them? All of the above.
Just curious how we got to this point where we have all these vehicles that we don't need.
So here's the answer to your question, and you aren't going to like the answer. Nobody asked the question, that's why. One of the things that I've been just thoroughly enjoying is asking questions that I'm so sorry I opened my mouth about. Because we got to be watching, we got to be looking, we got to be asking these questions. And many of these things have been in place. I'll give you another example. I wanted to know how much fuel trucks are using, right? And the mileage and when they filled up, when's the last time they had oil change, all that stuff. And the first answer was, well, we don't have that. So I went to Public Works and I said, what the hell? How come we don't have that? And they all went, well, what are you talking about, Chet? They pull it out of their glove compartment. Here's the list. This is when the last time I filled up. Here's the mileage it was when I filled it up. The gotcha is it's not being reported on. Nobody's asking for it. They're taking it, but nobody's getting it. That's changed. So we're going to continue to get that information. There is a spreadsheet now that's being tracked that has all that information in that will be reported up to the executive staff to know where that money is being spent. Part of the problem, which we apologized in an earlier meeting, is it's not that we aren't doing things. We're just doing a lousy job of letting you know that we're doing things. And that's what we've got to do better. We've got to be able to put it in front of the board. Yeah, we are looking at that. We've been looking at that. We just didn't realize that was something you wanted to know about. And it's okay for you to want to know about it. We just need to get that in front of you. It's back to asking those questions again. I continue to ask questions and I find that the answers are interesting.
Now, do these vehicles only fuel up at Public Works?
Yes.
I just assume that's secure, right? You can't just pull up any vehicle there.
There is no filling up with any vehicle. If you're not, there are specific methods of getting into the fuel pump, and as an example, Chet cannot drive his truck over and fill it up. It doesn't work, sorry. So that doesn't happen, and we're ultimately looking at right now, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag because we don't know what the actual best practice is yet, but we're looking at, can we do better in terms of buying fuel in bulk? We're paying a pretty high price for it. Can we just go to the local gas station and get fuel cards and let people fill up their trucks from the fuel cards? Now, again, there are some problems with that, but if it's infinitely cheaper, why wouldn't we? It's a place to save money. So those are the kind of things that we're trying to take apart and put back together again. What is the best practice? What is it we need? Do we need all these parts? Or we're doing all kinds of auditing of parts that are maintained, why we maintain them, are they necessary? Are we watching what we have on the shelf so we don't go buy 47 of something we already had 47 on the shelf but nobody knew it? All those kinds of questions. So all the details we're wading through. It's not like it's an arbitrary task. It is a line-by-line review, period.
Let me just follow that up. This is one of the many reasons why the board selected Chet to come in and take over this organization. The questions that Chet has been asking and continues to ask, in my opinion, being on the board, I don't know, 5 years? This is the first time they've been asked. So to answer your question, how do we get here? That's why Chet's here.
Okay, with that, I think Harry had a question or comment.
Thank you. My name's Harry Rucker. I'm with the HOA. I appreciate the brief, Chet. On your talk about the Tanasi Clubhouse and the committee, you mentioned that there's an overarching budget.
Yes.
What is that budget?
Okay, I will repeat it again. The budget is right now based on how much money we had set aside for a combination of how much money we had set aside for amenities already in the budget's been there for years, and the money we received back from the insurance. And that accumulation is to just at $8 million.
$8 million.
And so, to define it even more, the goal here is the understanding that the building really can't cost much more than about 6.5 or 6.6 in terms of dollars for the building itself, because I still have a parking lot to deal with. I still have all the landscaping that will need to be done to protect the area, protect the people across the cove. Yes, I really do listen when you complain about the headlights. And those kinds of things need to be in place, so I have to plan in that direction.
Thank you.
You bet.
And I was just doing some hand signaling here with Kevin, but I know a lot of people are asking where are we at with the insurance claim. So if you can just give us a real high level of where that stands today.
Right, just very briefly, there are still some outstanding issues in the claim process. We have received payments from the insurance company. There are still open issues. We have made some additional demands, and so that's still an ongoing process. And we hope to have some resolution in the coming months, but right now we don't have a definitive final number from the insurance carriers. We're still pursuing all available damages.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to the next agenda item, and that is Parks and Recreation Report by Simon. Oh, it's going to be Nan instead of Simon. Even better. Who's the one on the right?
You got it. Nope, there you go. You're good.
Good afternoon. My name is Nancy D'Amato. I'm chairman of the Parks and Recreation Committee. I'd like to thank you for inviting us here today, and I say us because when I'm through with my presentation, we have a couple people that are going to give us a brief summary of what's going on with green space. And also, Parks and Recreation is a team sport, and I have my team pretty much here, if they want to raise their hand so people know who they are. Thank you for coming. I'm going to start with our mission statement, and it comes right from our strategic plan. Tellico Village Parks and Recreation Department's mission is to improve the quality of life for the community of Tellico Village through a professionally managed Parks and Recreation Department. We offer state-of-the-art facilities with cutting-edge programs in an inviting atmosphere with exemplary customer service. Our goal is to enhance the well-being of each of our residents, whether they choose to use our indoor facilities or take advantage of our 30 miles of trails. We are committed to responding to users' current program needs and projecting future trends in recreation. We have a healthy membership, still above budget for 2023. We offer 45 different fitness classes for a total of 94 hours of class time. Our fitness area remains busy, especially in the morning. This year, we're due to reevaluate our equipment, and we're looking to either lease or buy the equipment, whatever we find is best for our community. And in addition to that, we're trying again to expand the fitness area by expanding the back porch. The back porch is an unused portion of the fitness wellness center with a beautiful view, and we would like to put maybe some equipment back there so people can enjoy that view while they work out. Next is some things that have come up within recreation that we're excited about. John Wand, I don't think he's here today, he's another one of our newer members, and he became interested in promoting senior games in Tellico Village. He invited people to participate this year, and the activities run from archery through volleyball. He got 18 people that have registered to participate in the senior games this year in June. They're being held in Williamson County, Tennessee. And we look forward to the Senior Olympics growing in upcoming years. This activity also brought to our attention one of the things that is popular in Senior Olympics, and that is the cornhole game. So John and Simon are busy on working on getting some boards. We might start that activity. It's something that we think we can start small with, like Simon likes to do. They're portable. We can move them to other areas of recreation, and we look forward to starting that in the gym at the Chota Center. Next on the list is green space, which remains a top priority for Parks and Recreation. Randy Vogel, another member of the advisory committee, comes to us with a wealth of knowledge in botany and ecology. He has worked to restore streams, forests, prairies, and wetlands. He and Gary Mulliner, who you know as our trail building throughout Tellico Village, has combined efforts to further develop all the green space as it becomes available to us. And they are the two gentlemen that we'll be hearing from shortly. There are several challenges with Parks and Recreation this year. Long-range planning has been talking for a while on tracking individuals as they come through our facilities. And the situation we have, we know, is less than ideal. And it's important for three reasons. It helps us to verify the people who are coming through the doors and the outdoor facilities, verifying that they're members. We needed to identify the need for expansion, and we needed to identify the popularity of all of our classes. The last time we looked at people counters, the expense seemed to outweigh the need. Since then, there have been great strides in artificial intelligence as a means of tracking users in both indoor and outdoor areas, and so we will again be looking at artificial intelligence as a means of finding something that will fit our needs. Capacity is not the only consideration when looking for the need for expansion. One of our biggest areas of concern is the shared space in the fitness classroom, where we have very active aerobics classes and mind-body classes. Those are the 94 hours of classes that I was talking about. Yoga remains one of our most popular classes in Tellico Village. 22% of all of our classes offered are some kind of mind-body workout. Right now, these classes are held in a less than ideal space. Both temperatures and lighting are not favorable for the practice of yoga. Space restrictions make it impossible for us to expand the mind-body program even further, and we have a couple of items that we would like to start doing at the Wellness Center, and there just are no time slots available. The fitness space is also near a busy, noisy corridor with a very noisy door. We have constant interruptions in the yoga room, and if you have ever enjoyed a mind-body class, you understand the importance of a quiet, relaxing atmosphere. So we are actively looking for a designated mind-body space that would resolve all of those issues and so that we can expand the program even more. This would also expand the use of the fitness room as it is now. The time slots that would become available as yoga moves to their own space, we could add more aerobic classes. And last but not least is the Chota Center. I have been part of the recreation team for 8 years. There has not been 1 year that Chota Center has not come up as a topic of conversation sometimes several times. We currently have 4 meeting rooms, and they are comfortably full. We rarely turn people away unless they ask for a specific time or day, and we can accommodate them. But more importantly, these rooms are available free of charge to property owners and their guests. With added growth in the community, expanding number of fitness classes, and tightened budgets due to inflation, we are actively looking for ways to add income to an already subsidized facility. That brings me an end to my presentation. If there are no questions, we'll move on to, I think we'll have Gary speak first.
I wanted to see what I represent.
Chain gang.
So thank you very much for hearing the rec department, and sometimes I feel like I am a rec department by myself, and maybe that's just a wrecking department, I'm not sure which. There are some needs that I would like to expand on beyond just the walking trails. We need biking. We need we have a younger group coming in. We see that in Kahiti. We see that in the whole village, and people want some place where they can bike. Roads are not conducive to that. That's an accident waiting to happen. However, we don't have many flat spaces in either Kahiti or in the main village, so that's something we need to study. There are a few places. The use of the golf course, of course, and I think Simon did some of that earlier in the year when golf didn't open until 10 o'clock, so that was a good start. So we need to continue to look at that. We need to have more paved walking areas. We just have a clientele that walking what I call the natural trails is tough on them. They don't pick up their feet high enough, and their puppies are dragging them along. So Kahiti has a straight stretch. There's a toilet at one end, but then you have to turn around and just walk back. If we could get a loop like around the rec center is fabulous. I think it needs more in other areas, because the parking is generally going to get to be a real problem around the rec center. But really the other area that I'm interested in, Simon's been working with us along with Randy, and that is this new green space that I'm going to say we purchased. I'd like to say we inherited, but we had to pay for it. We have been working over in the Malacca area, and I'm going to challenge and invite the board and all the staff who would like a little exercise, because this is more than a little exercise. We have been working on a trail since about New Year's Day. The chain gang has put in over 500 hours, probably has about 100 more to go by the time we finish. I spent this morning 3 hours digging in the dirt, and that's what I'm best at. You can see up here on the screen what we do. There are no backhoes, there's no tractors, there's nothing but us. And my clothes look just like that I dumped at the back door as I walked in the house this morning. But I would love to have the board come and really see what a beautiful spot we have over in Malacca. It's a hill. Your cardio will get some pretty good exercise. It's historic. We found an old quarry. We found the remains of an old house that I believe when TVA took the lake, they just plowed the house over. We found old bricks. I believe it has not been farmed or cows on that land for 150 years. We have 150-year-old trees that are gorgeous. We have plants that are just, we were in plants up to our knees this morning and digging the trail. Come and see what you have bought and see that green space is critical for our area here. You'll see what land here in Tennessee that you haven't seen for a long time. Beautiful. So come over to this. So anyway, I'm the trail guy. You need something, give me a call.
Thanks.
Afternoon, everyone. I'm Randy Vogel, and I'm one of the newest members on the Recreation Advisory Committee. I was appointed by the board, joined just this year, and immediately find myself up to my elbows in work, but it's very gratifying work, and I'm working with an extremely talented and committed, dedicated committee and staff. So it's been really gratifying. Chad, I was really glad to hear you mention that the vision statement talks specifically about quality of life, because there's been many, many studies over the years that have demonstrated the importance of green space and the contribution that makes to quality of life. And we've got a true amenity here in Tellico Village with all of the green space that we have and the preservation that's been done on it. But as an ecologist, one of the things that I recognized as I began tramping through the woods, and I don't just stay on the trails, I cut cross-country because I can't help myself. I want to see everything that's in these forests. And I noticed there were some components missing. There's some restoration needed to turn them back into healthy systems. So that's what we've been embarking on right now. We've got some initial efforts started this spring with some seeding. We've also been planting plant plugs. In fact, Gary mentioned Malaco. I've trudged up that hill the past 2 days with a wheelbarrow and 6 gallons of water and flats plant plugs to start the process, getting it involved. What the committee will be doing over the course of the next several months is we'll be developing an overall plan that actually outlines what we hope to achieve in this restoration effort and develop some specific goals and objectives, and that will allow us to move forward in an effective and efficient manner. So I won't take any more of your time. I just want you to know that we really appreciate the fact that this community had the foresight to preserve the amount of green space that they did. And that's to all of our benefit, and I'm happy for one to be living here. So, any questions from anyone?
Yeah, Randy, I have one.
Yes.
So I watched your video. That was really good. Thank you very much for doing that.
Yes.
And you just mentioned seeds and plant plugs. So there's a couple of trails in our neighborhood that I really enjoy walking on. Thank you, Gary, for doing that, because I don't know how you pulled some of that. I have no idea. It is just a miracle that you got some of those trees out of the way like you did. But so my question was, if I'm interested in getting some of those plant plugs or seeds to follow your recommendation, could you recommend to us? I would feel like a Johnny Appleseed going through there, and there's these, seriously, there's these little meadows that you caused me to have a vision. I just take the seeds and just throw them out there and kind of work them down and let them naturally grow, or the plant plugs along the trails. So if you could make a recommendation for us people that like to go the trails,
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and I should have mentioned that part of the plan is going to be to engage the public, because I have a vision that we've got a tremendous opportunity here, and that there's going to be a lot of interest in the public in doing these kinds of things, the very type of thing that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So part of my vision is that we can find somebody to do some contract growing for us next spring. Right now, we're planting plugs that admittedly probably should have been planted back in March.
Right.
For them to be able to really grow and thrive. They'll be okay, but they just won't do as well as they would have had we planted them when I would like to have planted them. But I could not find a source here in Tennessee to do that. So I've been talking to a native plant nursery and talking to them about the possibility if they'd be interested in contract growing for us, and they would. So part of our plan, part of the things that we'll be discussing is doing that. As a part of that, I can see how we could put the word out to the community and say, would you like to purchase a flat of plant plugs to place in the open space behind your home?
Yeah.
And I think that would be a popular thing, and it would be a beneficial thing, because what needs to happen is we've got to start getting these patches established, these small populations of these native plants, so that then they can start spreading on their own. And it will help overall. So thank you for bringing that up, because yes, that will be part of the plans, and you'll be seeing something well in advance of next spring, providing that opportunity, I think.
Well, I can see, and one of my granddaughters come to visit, they really like these trails, and I can see carrying a bag of plugs or seeds, finding a little spot, they plant it, they plug it, put the seeds down, and then over the years, watch them grow. And I can just visualize their joy in doing that.
Absolutely.
This is mine, I did this.
Absolutely. So, appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
So, other questions?
Randy, as part of your mission, I know the Garden Club, we've talked at length about educating property owners on invasive species and removing them or not planting them. Is that something you guys are going to also be working on?
We haven't really, I've mentioned it because I'm obviously interested in overall ecological health, and there are some invasive species issues in our forests. So we haven't really talked about that yet, other than the fact that I have jokingly mentioned to some of the committee members that I want to have an MDD day, which stands for Mahonia Death Day, because in those woods behind the wellness center, Mahonia is starting to take over, and it's going to become problematic. So I would anticipate putting together a group of volunteers, go out, I'll be happy to lead them, cut those plants down, stump treat them so that they go away. And I think that any type of a plan for ecological restoration has to include invasive species, and we have to address that also as part of the plan. So,
Well, and
thank you.
again, I think it gets back to the importance of you supplying the seeds or the plugs or recommending, because I could go out and pick out something that would be horrible,
Yeah, and I can see how we could certainly, I could do some actually hands-on training, or we could also put together some type of a brief presentation on how to plant, what to plant, where to plant it, and talk about things, because, right plant, right place is important also. You don't want to take something that needs full sun and stick it, just because it's a native plant, stick it back in the forest, it's not going to perform. So I've already developed a list of plants that I know are here and plants that I know should be here. And so I've already got that established, at least for the forested habitats. So I can start sharing that with folks also. So, any other questions? Thank you so much for your time and interest.
Y'all, I'm so excited and proud to be working with this group. I'm Simon Bradbury, the Parks and Recreation Director. Thanks, y'all. And I've got probably about a minute and a half where Beth and Mitzi are going to throw staplers at me. But I want to talk a little bit about our staff, and what I've got up here is a list of some of the certifications that we have. And so we have ACE, American Council on Exercise. So we have senior fitness certifications, group fitness, personal training, everything that you can imagine. We're also part of Tennessee Recreation and Parks Association. That's the whole state of Tennessee. With the Parks and Recreation, I serve as the chair of their foundation. NRPA is the National Recreation and Parks Association. We're part of that also. So we're getting the latest and greatest that's going on nationally as well. We have CPRE, which is a national certification and certified Parks and Recreation executive. That's one that I have. CPRP is something that our assistant director, Larissa, has achieved. It's not just a giveaway type certification. You have to study. It takes about 6 months to a year to study for it. And when you take the exam, it's not like an online thing. You have to go to a place where you have to put all your phones up. They lock everything up. You have a computer, just like you do for nursing and everything else. So it's part of it is to recognize that it's a profession, and you have to be certified, and it's not easy to get. We also have American Red Cross. Our Lindsay, she's our CPR instructor and also teaches for our staff. We're also part of the Resort and Commercial Recreation Association. That gives you a balance with you have Parks and Recreation, and you have the Resort Commercial Recreation Association, which includes things like Hilton Head, Kiowa Island. See what those folks are, what are they doing as well? How does that mix what we're doing? We also have OSHA certified. Russell's on a kick to get folks OSHA certified, as is Chet, and Joe went through that process. University of Tennessee, that's for, I got my master's in therapeutic recreation and my bachelor's in private recreation management. And Lindsay, who's about to graduate with her master's in public health, she's our recreation coordinator. I might add that she's also a 3.75 average. She's really kicking butt. Sustainable trail building certificate, and that's something that actually Gary and I had gone through. That's to make sure that we're doing trails. We're not just going out there and doing them. We're doing professional grade trails that you would pay a top dollar to do. And I've got a guy right now that's going around with, if you see him on a bike and he has a staff shirt, he's going around mapping all our trails. We're going to do a whole new system of mapping to where we can have a QR code and you can get a map to it. Also going to do some more signage. But anyways, as he's doing it, he's like, I can't believe the price that you did this with, because he works with folks that do it commercially. He goes, you're looking at $200,000. You guys did it for less than 10 grand. And that's because of what Gary was talking about and what he does. Doctor of Education and Organization Leadership, I'm a third of the way through. That's what I'm working towards. The Tennessee Naturalist is something I've just finished going through, was because as you see from Randy and getting to know the outdoors, ecology and stuff, he's a black belt. I'm a white belt. I want to learn more about how this goes if I'm going to be helping to organize this. I can build a good trail. Gary may have a controversy with that. He may build better than I do. We kind of banter back and forth about who's better. But anyways, I want to know a little bit more about it. Okay, next slide. All the things that we do, I like for us to keep focused on, and it goes back to something I talked about during the budget session. I don't think everybody listening was part of that. And one of the profound things that we heard from a doctor giving our keynote speak about the importance of parks and recreation, and it was looking at folks that had the most centennials. How many people over 100? And what are commonalities? What do they have in that were very similar? First thing is keep moving. Got to keep moving, whether it's exercise, walking, whatever you're doing, keep moving. Having a sense of purpose, a social connection. You want to have a sense of nature, at least getting outside, and having fun. So we look at that for all of the things that we do with Parks and Rec. Does it fit into that? Okay, next. The last thing that I did, I just finished up in Washington, D.C., and this is called Warriors at Ease. It's a trauma-informed adaptive yoga and mindfulness for military community. It's geared for folks that have, for PTSD, for loss of limb, brain injury, folks that have gone through quite a bit during their military service, and they have found that yoga has been very helpful. It's not a therapy. It's more of learning how people's sympathetic and sympathetic nervous system have worked and reacted to the trauma and stress that they've been involved in. And I looked at this a couple of months ago. Actually, my wife suggested I do this. But looking and talking with some of our folks here, a lot of military folks, and now that they're retired and things are slowing down, things are coming up. And they're not being able to enjoy the life as well as they might be able to. And this has been a proven way to help that. And as I was looking at getting ready to start this, we had somebody that just moved here. Her name was Susan. And she heard a Rec 101, and she heard them talk about starting a Warriors at Ease program. And she was like, oh my gosh, I was at Walter Reed for 10 years teaching this program. I need to talk to Simon. So with this program, I'm also a white belt. I've been doing yoga for about 20 years, but working with Warriors at Ease, a white belt. She's a black belt. She's been doing this for a long time. Her and I are going to help put this program together. We're going to probably roll it out in the fall. I went up there thought I was going to learn some things and get a little bit more education. It was one of the most profound experiences of my life. I worked with fellow veterans, 4 of which were combat vets and went through some serious stuff, and talking about how it changed them. And I'm really excited. That was the last picture, I guess. I'm really excited about coming and bringing it here. That's all I've got. Does anybody have any questions for me? Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Good update. Next on the agenda, we've got Kevin Alfont, IT.
So finally, the fun and exciting presentation you've all been waiting for has arrived. Clayton asked me just a minute ago, he said, is your presentation short and sweet? And I said, I get the opportunity to come before the board once every 2 years, so I'm taking full advantage of this. So 45 minutes, I should be done. Since it has really been some time since I've last presented to you, I wasn't exactly sure what to present. A simple update seemed lacking, so what I thought I would bring to you today was some recent projects, news, and statistics from the IT department, and then close with some technologies that we have in place and what we hope to use in the future as far as technology goes. So if we could get, oh, great. I thought I would start with the ever-popular HelpSpot ticketing system and run through some quick statistics. We send out a survey at the closing of every HelpSpot ticket, and so far those statistics show that we have an 83% satisfaction rating. There's some room for improvement there, but still it's a positive number. Over the course of, we've had the HelpSpot ticketing system in place for probably 8 years now, and we've averaged about 1,000 tickets per year. We're a little bit below that right now. We're 4.5 months in with 322 tickets, but we'll come close to that 1,000 ticket average at the end of the year. Average time to assign a ticket is 2 hours. Average time for a staff to respond to a ticket is about 3 hours after it's assigned. And the average time for a ticket to be closed after the staff member receives it is about 3 hours. And an interesting statistic that I just found last time I did these statistics was that we average about 8 interactions with the ticket submitter over the course of the ticket life. So there's a lot of information going back and forth with these tickets between the staff member and the person who submits the ticket.
Of the ones that didn't rate them satisfactory, what are the primary reasons?
Next slide.
I'm giving you your segue.
Yeah, there we go. Transition was great there. Thank you. Positive feedback that we get on these survey results mention the speed of the response from the staff. The negative feedback mentions mostly, anybody want to guess?
They don't like the answer.
The number one is trash. Number two is they don't like the answer that they got. That's correct, yeah. So we give them an answer, it's the answer that corresponds with our policies or procedures, but they just don't like the answer.
What do you mean that number one is trash?
The number one feedback that we get, revolves around trash. So they'll ask questions about trash, get an answer. Some of those feed into that we give them the answer and they don't like the answer, but yeah, trash is mentioned most in our negative feedback. The departments with the most HelpSpot tickets, Public Works makes sense since they're involved in so many different things, roads, ACC, permitting, water and sewer. That's followed by marketing, admin, and golf. And we received the most HelpSpot tickets on Monday, and we averaged 3.5 HelpSpot tickets every workday. I wanted to quickly go over what we've done in Tanasi Clubhouse. It felt like we pulled miles of wire. Thankfully, that clubhouse has an attic. Otherwise, we would be pulling miles of wire underneath, and pulling wire under a trailer is no fun. We installed 4 desktop computers, 4 desk phones, 6 sound speakers, 2 outside and 4 inside. We installed 2 microphones, which allow public address over all the speakers. 3 65-inch TVs and 2 55-inch TVs were installed. And Casey told us yesterday that that space, the lounge space in the back, is being utilized and enjoyed by everybody who comes in. 5 security cameras were installed and 1 network video recorder. We installed a receiver for playing music. That allows us to set up 6 audio zones in the trailer. And we installed a security system and codes for all the staff to use. One thing we had to do was relocate the WATE weather cam. This is a camera that shows up on WATE weather from time to time. That was located on the starter shack, had almost the exact view you see here, except it also had the putting green on it. We relocated that to the back of the trailer, and that's the view right now that's going to show up on WATE when they show Tellico Village. Just a couple quick pictures of the installs that we did at the clubhouse. We tried to do neat installs. The left-hand picture is our rack with all of the equipment that we put into the facility. The middle picture is kind of hard to see, but it shows the camera and a speaker outdoors, and then, of course, the television on the right-hand side. We set up Michael and Casey with their office equipment. They've got a nice environment to work in. And we set up the front counter with the points of sale, the credit card terminals, printers, and everything, phones, everything they need to operate. Moving on to some IT staff news.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
This is insurance, correct?
Yes. Everything that I bought, I had to turn into them
Yeah.
for insurance claims.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
We had a special code just for that.
Yeah, to be clear about that, that was kind of just thrown out there. But to be clear about that, a lot of things we had in our policy, what was called loss of business. And so we were getting funds for this stuff as we went along to put it back in place.
I just wanted to bring out, because somebody's gonna make the interpretation, look, you just went and bought all these computers and TVs for golf, and no, it's all part of their recouping through insurance.
Actually, Pat, we bought these within a couple weeks of the building being burnt down, and we had them in storage. So some IT staff news. One of our employees, Stephen Zell, who's been with us for 10 years, is going to be leaving us June 18th. Stephen will be moving to Alaska with his wife and children. We've worked out a deal with Stephen where he can work with us remotely. He's a valuable asset to the POA, and he's going to be hard to replace, so we're hoping that this arrangement benefits both us and Stephen. As I said, I wanted to give you as much information as I could with the time I had available, so I'm going to go through a lot of different things quickly. So this is going to be a little bit of an IT potpourri section, and it'll consist of a lot of different things. We moved the water meter reading laptop device to a Microsoft Surface device, and this is going to allow better performance for the operator who reads the meters. Right now, if he has to get out of his truck, he has to take the laptop, which is a portable device, but it's a little cumbersome when you have to look in a meter, take the top off, hold a laptop, and then type. With the Microsoft Surface, he's got a case, he can just slide it over his hand and then type the QWERTY on the Surface device. So a lot better performing for the operator. All of our facilities are now on high-speed, on-demand internet, fiber. We can select the bandwidth from 10 megabits per second to 1 gigabit per second. I'll give you an example of where that has been helpful. Today, this very day, we had a meeting that was streaming downstairs with the Fort group, and then we're streaming upstairs now. So I went on this morning and I moved that up from 100 megabit to 300 megabit. Now, when I get back in the office, I'll move it back down to 100. We pay for more bandwidth, but we can adjust that accordingly. So, over the course of 6 hours, we'll get charged a little bit more, but we have the bandwidth we need. We currently have 229 security cameras. They're never in the right place at the right time, but we have that many, and we have 26 network video recorders at different locations. We're
Kevin,
moving. Yeah.
Quick question on your cameras. Do you have camera coverage at the Wellness Center on the trash receptacle that could pick up the car and license plate number of folks dumping?
At Chota?
At the Wellness Center?
Wellness Center, yes.
You do?
And the ones that we don't have, we talked about this yesterday, we have cameras that we can move to pick that up, and we're going to do that. We'll have that done by the end of the week. I hope everybody doesn't rush to dump their trash before the end of the week now, but, yeah. We're starting to move and have almost completely moved away from Charter as our delivery for television. We're moving to a streaming TV service. I can tell you which one that is, but it's YouTube TV. And that's going to save the POA a significant amount of money. And this is possible due to our increased internet bandwidth that we have in place. The new Esri GIS system has been deployed with Public Works, and I know that Clayton's working with True North right now to develop the best utilization scenario for that product. This one is, I want to be real slow and clarify what we have here. We currently have 176 Verizon cellular and IP devices in operation. Those are not all cell phones. We have a lot of cellular devices that are critical in the operation of the POA. All of our IP desk phones come through Verizon. We have 81 of those. We have 53 cell phones. That's down about 10% from 2 years ago. We have 8 Cradlepoint cellular routers. Those are at our various locations, typically in key locations for operations like golf course or rec centers. Those are in place in case the AT&T internet connection goes down. These are failover devices. And the remainder are iPads. An example of that would be the Tanasi beverage cart, Microsoft Surfaces, as I said, the water meter reader, cell-enabled laptops, Wi-Fi hotspots, and MiFi devices. And we currently maintain 177 users in our various facilities building alarm system that is constantly changing as people come and go within the organization. A new technology that I thought I would talk about today, this is one of many that we use, are these round Frisbee-size dishes you'll see on almost all of the buildings throughout the POA. And these are antennas, and we purchased these from a company called Ubiquity, and they're nano beams. And the purpose of these antennas is to provide a connection between buildings. And this saves the POA a lot of money in cabling and also in providing internet connection to a building that otherwise would have had some kind of dedicated charter connection. We currently have, I think, 26 nano beams between 13 locations. It's easy for us to replace these if they go down, whereas if you had cabling, it's a little more difficult to replace cable. Some of the locations that we have these antennas on, the left picture is Public Works. The antenna on the left shoots down to the sign shop at the lower parking lot. The antenna on the right of that building by the garage door is the antenna that shoots over to Tanasi Golf Maintenance. And then on this building, there's actually a third antenna further up that will shoot over to the new Public Works trailer. The picture on the right is a picture of Tokwa Golf Maintenance. The antenna on the bottom shoots back to the Tokwa Clubhouse. The Tokwa Clubhouse is actually where the AT&T connection comes in. And then that's shared with Tokwa Golf Maintenance through that antenna. The antenna on the top shoots back to Tokwa Pavilion. And that's how the pavilion gets internet for TV, security cameras, and for Wi-Fi. And then on that building, we also have a third antenna that shoots over to the golf mechanics shop. This is the last slide I'm going to show you about this. This is the antenna on the pickleball complex. That one's a little bit harder to see. It's on the beam there, the gray beam. And then that shoots back to the wellness center proper. And that antenna we actually painted to match the brick. It's right above the left-hand corner of that window. I think I'm going to close on a couple subjects. A technology that's been in the news lately, and I think that we need to consider as an IT department and as an organization as a whole, is how is artificial intelligence going to affect us, and how are we going to implement it? I think we've all heard stories about how artificial intelligence might be used, everything from it's going to take over the world and kill all mankind to it's going to be a useful tool, and I think it's going to fall hopefully somewhere in between. Possibly, yes. Hopefully more as a useful tool. But I think it does show promise with automating tasks, especially repetitive tasks. I think it will provide better acquisition of real-time data for us, especially in the accounting realm. Something that I read about, and I think it's really an interesting concept, is to provide knowledge bases from long-term employees' emails. If you think about the amount of data that's in, say, Jeff Gagley's email, 20 years of emails, or Winston's old email account, for AI to be able to search that within a second and pull out an answer, it's a really, really good knowledge base for us to have, I think. If you haven't had an opportunity, I would suggest you go on to ChatGPT, which is an interface that's online, and you can ask AI questions. It's terrifying. It really is. We sat down as an IT team and asked it to write I told the guys this in our directors meeting yesterday, to write a web page for us. And we gave it some specifics, and in 30 seconds it had a web page. And we put it online. It looked beautiful. Stevens asked it to write songs for him, blues songs. They're great. It can do poetry. It's impressive and scary. I think it can also probably improve our network security and our physical security, improve marketing, and improve public works operations, especially in water and sewer. It's got a lot of potential upside to it. I did have one other thing I think I wanted to go over. I don't have a slide for this. I wanted to quickly go over our transition from the current IBM system, the AS400 system, to the alternate systems we're looking at. This transition is being spearheaded by Mickey White, and the IT department provides technical advice and assistance when called upon by Mickey and the committee. I think the most important suggestion we've made as an IT department is that whatever software we choose, that software needs to be cloud-based. I don't think any new system that we choose should be an on-premises server or have on-premises hardware to fully operate. Over the last 10 years, it's been my goal to move all the POA systems to the cloud. The IBM financial system is the last system that currently has hardware on the POA premises. When I started, our email was on Exchange server. Every point of sale had an instance on a SQL server. Backups were kept on tape, and our phone system ran on a Nortel Meridian PBX box upstairs in the POA office. Now, all of our systems, with the exception of the IBM, are in the cloud environment. The advantages of having a system in the cloud environment are numerous. The disadvantages are that it relies on a solid, always-up internet source, which we now have with our AT&T connection. Another suggestion that we have is that while we strive to implement an all-inclusive software solution, we must realize that this system will most likely not replace all of our software, such as Chelsea, Spectrum, and Aloha. It's important for us to find software that will connect and share data between those systems that it cannot replace. So that's usually done with API calls. So whatever company we talk to or go with, we have to make sure they realize that we have software that we want this system to integrate with if they can't replace it. The only other last thing I have is that we've been working to upgrade the sound system here at the Yacht Club. We've worked with Broadway Sound along with some members, Mark Pantley, Bob Wolf, Betty Fortune, Bob Bilodeau, and others to come up with a solution to the sound system here. We've come up with a solution and installed that solution. It's an iPad that controls each floor individually. We've had really positive feedback on that. We've not had any issues. Nobody's called us for help, and every time we ask, everybody's had positive responses. So we're going to go ahead and continue that. It's only on the bottom floor right now, and we're going to add that to the other 3 floors soon. And that's all I've got for you if you have any questions.
All right. Thanks for the update, Kevin. Anybody have any questions for him?
Great.
Thank you. Very informative.
Sorry,
Thanks.
I didn't take 45 minutes. I'll work on it.
Next on the agenda is RV, boat, and dry storage. Who's driving this?
Poor John, he got drug into this. I'll just kind of introduce it and give you an opportunity, John, also as well. We put some slides together. This is not a new concept. We've had HOA representatives come to us for the past 2 or 3 years and talk about we need storage, or we would like to see better RV storage or better boat storage. And so John, who is a part of an RV club, had actually approached me a few weeks ago. And I got with Beth. Beth actually helped me put these slides together. And this is just a concept we wanted to give to you all today to ponder on, and we would like to come back to the board with a business plan, actually tell you what costs would be associated, what land we might think be best, because as you'll see throughout the presentation, some of the land, we would still need to walk the area to determine would this even be a good location. So this is kind of a pie-in-the-sky presentation, but these are some of the concepts that we have in mind, we being staff and some of the RV group and boat owners that say, you know, we just have a need for this. This is not necessarily something we want. It's we've outgrown what we have at the Public Works location, and we need a nice facility. And I think it's no secret that obviously these places do real well because they're all around us. You see these new storage places being built all along 411, all in Loudon. And why not have a place here that we can appreciate in Telco Village and we get that return on our investment? So this is just an overall map. There's nothing new about this. You've all seen this with the CCI purchase along with what the Long Range Planning Committee has presented to us. So this is nothing new. I just wanted to show you this is the map of Telco Village and what lands we have right now. So I probably should have grabbed that clicker. Do you mind? This is one option. And again, this is not a new concept. Even the Kahiti residents, you know, Bob and I talked when the land use plan came out. This was a location, the entrance that we said currently it's being used for nothing. The future use could be recreational, maybe possible commercial. That's an area we would like to look at. Not saying that, you know, we know that the land would be perfect for an RV or boat storage or even just dry storage for furniture and things of that nature, but it's a piece of property that we will be researching. So keep going, we'll go through these fairly quickly. Kahiti Golf Maintenance, that's fuzzy, I apologize, but where our current Kahiti Golf Maintenance is, Kahiti Trail, and you actually turn to the very right-hand side of it, and you come in that back corner. Well, we're saying, hey, why can't we put in a access road from the front side of Kahiti Trail and come back in here and use some of this property? You'll see up at the top there, it's 7.7 acres. So we felt like, it's pretty flat. We own it. You know, maybe out of sight, out of mind. Again, it's currently just used for recreational or golf maintenance, building and trails. So, you know, future use, who knows? But that's an area we'd like to look at. This piece of property is the southern end of Mialakwa, you know, behind the Sloan Center, near where Simon and gang talk about the kudzu. Currently, we're not using any of that area at all. Future use recreational. There's a total of 23.7 acres. Again, not real sure. It's one of those pieces of property that Beth and I determined we really need to get out there and walk. But could we put something there? See what's next. This area is adjacent to Five Star. For those of you that were familiar with the dog park, on the right-hand side photo, you see the blue shaded area. To the right of that was where the dog park used to be. Now Cook Brothers has the little neighborhood that they've built. Just above the property that I'm referring to is the new Five Star independent apartment style building. So we, POA, currently own that 5-acre tract there. Again, we thought, gosh, we know that it's pretty good, you know, piece of property taken into consideration. These folks have moved out of probably a pretty good sized home into an apartment style building. Chances are they probably have a need for some sort of storage units, whether it's RV or boat, or maybe just some furniture, some, you know, extra antiques and things of that nature. So again, just trying to throw it out there. What could we do? This area is west of Telco Parkway and the Tanasi Golf Course. You see, again, P31, the thicker piece up at the top, right above that would be our Public Works area, Davis Ferry Road, you know, just behind where the current RV storage place is secured in back there. You know, could we do something on up top of the hill there? And that was kind of our thoughts. These are examples. I know you've seen them. Again, we've mentioned they're all over Highway 411 going from Madisonville to Von Orr. There are some just as you pull out onto 72 heading towards Von Orr from here that are near Sweetwater Von Orr Road. But some on the bottom you notice are gravel. If you'll go back, please. Some on the bottom are gravel, some are concrete. They could be enclosed all the way on 3 sides. Up in the very top right corner, there's an option where it's completely enclosed. Probably you could even close a door. We haven't gotten that far. The idea is to come to you as the board today and say, we would like to look at this. If nobody opposes and nobody just feels like, no way, we don't need this, don't even come to us with this. But I would like to work with John, I'm going to work with Beth, work with Clayton. Let's come up with a great area for this. Let's come up with a business plan and be able to come back to the board, especially before budget season, and, you know, talk about, here's what we think our return would be. Let's, you know, figure out maybe a contractor and go from there. If you'll go on to the next one now, these would be sort of examples of storage units. Again, we don't know. We want to put something together and really do our research and see, you know, do a survey. What is it that the folks may use? We've had numerous requests from HOA that have come to me and said, hey, we need storage units bad. This is a current photo from the sky of the Public Works location now. And, you know, it's just, everything's kind of out in the open. They do the best with the land that they have. It's not perfect as far as, you know, being graded in the flatness. And they have done lots of cleanup over the years. And we just felt like, okay, it's time now that we really put something nice and professional in place. And, you know, we know what some of these folks are paying elsewhere. And we feel like we could do this internally and actually bring a nice facility into Tellico Village. So John, if you would like to make a comment, he's actually in an RV group with a huge RV club, so.
Yeah, this is, you know, something that I've been talking about because I am on the board of the RV club here. We have about 80 RVs in our group, and there's a lot more in the village that aren't in our club. But of those 80, I estimate maybe less than 10 are in our facility. All the rest are in facilities around the area. I just checked yesterday. The biggest player in the area is Volunteer Storage. They've got 10 locations in this area, not a single opening for an RV. Next is American Storage. I think they got 5 locations in the area, not a single opening for an RV. There's been at least 4 large covered RV developments that have popped up just in the short period I've been here. They're all full. There's just a sign just went up last week on 321 right across from Wind River, coming soon, RV storage. So there's a lot of demand right now for RV storage. And I can tell you, in our facility, you know, not ideal, with all the tightness and the curves and terrain variations, we charge $17 a month. I had mine at American Storage, which is just a gravel lot, not level, no cover, for $45. It was the cheapest I could find. Now I'm in the process of moving it to covered storage, and it's a ways away, but I found one for $125 because everybody else is charging $150. And then you get the ones with the back or the sides, it's usually around $200. Fully enclosed is $250 on up a month. And they're all full. So we've got a huge opportunity. All the people that live here would much rather have it 5 minutes away than 35 minutes away. They have to go now. And we don't have to be half of the price of the outside competitors. We have to be, you know, as an amenity, we would expect it to be slightly less. But, I mean, even at $17 compared to other facilities, we're giving it away right now. Now, we'd have to, if we wanted to charge $40, say, we'd have to bring it up to standards, but there's a huge opportunity here. Yeah.
Go to the mic. Yeah. While he's doing that, or while he's coming to the mic, isn't there, that's not showing the secure area, right?
It's at the very bottom left corner. It's a very small area.
But there's, well, I thought it was a lot larger. It's much bigger than what it's showing here, because it's behind the fence?
Yeah.
There's a gate there, Marty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, bam, great presentation, thank you. Very impressive. Just a quick note I wanted to add. Both of the managers at the independent living and assisted living, they're busting at the seams with the waiting lists, because everybody's coming down here, and their parents, of course, are coming from up north if they're not well. I would assume that that whole area, and they've got the electrical boxes set up on the other side of the street, we should probably take that off the chopping block, off the list. It's just one of those things where they're kind of hoping maybe a independent person would come in, or somebody that wants to, an investor, put something in there, even if it wasn't the POA. I don't know how that is possible, or if there would be, but anyway.
It's for sale.
Oh, it is?
It's for sale. You
Okay,
tell them to come
give
see
us a
us.
call.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, the waiting lists are pretty large over there. Just wanted to add a quick note on that as far as one of the locations possibly. Thank you.
Sure. Now, Mr. White, I'm fascinated that you're quiet over here for independent covered boat storage. How can that be possible?
Oh, it's not. I was making notes so I could chastise people. No. Yeah. Yeah, you need to sit over here on the dark side of the board table so that you could hear Rick under his breath talk to me, because
Okay, is that it, Pat?
he'll say, okay, here it comes. No, my concern is that, and you've heard me say this before, I moved here a number of years ago, and you come down Tellico Parkway, and you see a pond on this side and a boat dock, and you see a waterfall, and then you go, oh, look, a lake, and then you drive along, oh, look, I can see some houses, and then you drive along, oh, look, some more lake, and oh, look, golf course, and now I'm going to see a 4-story boat storage. Yeah. Or I'm going to see an RV park that somebody is going to get 5 minutes of convenience, and they're going to wreck my view, our view, right? That's my concern. My concern is we moved here for this, and now we're going to industrialize it or whatever. Now, if it makes us money, that makes it okay. I am not for non-progress, but at the same time, I'm not for wrecking something that is working well. My point, and that's why Chet brought it up, because there is an adversarial point of view, and I will represent the people that take my point of view, and you will represent the people that take yours, and we will have an educated dialogue outside of social media and come to a decision, correct? Right?
Absolutely.
There you go.
And I think part of that, and I think you make a good point, but also, as you recall, when we decided to purchase that property outside of Kahiti, or the Kahiti entrance, there was the speculation that somebody wanted to buy that for storage, right?
It was to protect.
And it was to protect our views, our entrances, things like that. And Mitzi showed that property again today. I guess I just want to point out that there's also ways of doing it. You could still probably put a storage facility back there behind the trees, so you wouldn't be able to see it. And those are the kinds of things we'd have to consider.
Yeah, and there are properties, as Mitzi went through, that you can put storage facilities or boats or whatever, and you can hide them. But at the same time, I'm very cognizant of that person that bought that house that's looking down that channel at a forklift pulling up a boat to 4 stories, and they might be the only one that can see them. But I don't think that should be the sacrifice. It's just one.
Well, the bottom line here is that there's got to be a balance between, to John's point and to yours, there has to be a balance here. We need to have facilities where we can store information. It's not just about money. It is, to be frank, it's more about convenience than it is money. Is that, and can we be creative enough to put a RV park with storage behind trees where it doesn't impede anybody's view? And can we make a boat storage something worth seeing as opposed to an, oh my God, what an industrial building? I mean, all these things have been done other places and done well. It's just a matter of whether we want to take the time to do that or not. And to your point, Pat, is that what the community as a whole wants?
Right. And I think this forum is the way to handle this. Now you can go onto social media and you can start spewing out half-truths like I am sure within the next 3 or 4 days, we're going to hear the board is putting in a trailer storage area somewhere.
No, a trailer park.
A boat storage, 4 stories tall with an 8,000 horsepower non-muffled forklift. It's going to happen, but that's not what we said today, is it, folks?
Well, and Marty, you know, if you'll recall, one of the driving forces behind buying that piece of Kahiti was we couldn't compel them to put up a tree line.
Right.
So we can do anything we want with that property now. Second point, and this is just me personally, till I see a business plan, my vote's no. If I can see a business plan that actually makes sense, I will change my mind, but not right now.
Well, and I think that's exactly.
No
what-
business plan.
And that's exactly what Mitzi said. So until they have something, we don't even have anything to discuss.
Yeah. Well, I think it's reasonable to explore it. It's another way to get revenue, and frankly, we could put it into the commercial side of the business.
Right, so I don't, and number one, I hope everybody by now knows that I completely concur with we need a business plan before we do anything. But the reality of it is, and I think where Mitzi's going with this is, we don't want to go down a road where 2 minutes into the conversation, everybody's going, have you lost your mind? We want to be sure, I don't care what the business plan is, because to the point I was trying to make earlier, I know we can come up with a business plan that makes money. If it didn't make money, there wouldn't be 487 of them popping up and everywhere. So it's not an issue of whether we can make money at it. It's a whether does it fit into the community? Does it give them the convenience that they need? And is it a price that will be attractive so that our homeowners feel like they're getting the best bang for their buck on their own property? And that's really the bottom line, and that is part of the business plan. Because like I said, anybody, people can do a storage unit wrong and still make money.
So I think as a board, we're amenable to looking at options. Is anybody against Mitzi looking at options? No. All right.
You better be pretty, though.
Just have to wait 6 months, that's all.
You can put
That's right.
lipstick on a pig,
All
and
right.
it's still a pig.
In the essence of time, we're going to keep moving.
Okay. Last quarter, a question came up about our wages from Q1 of '22 in comparison to Q1 of '23. And there was a substantial increase year over year. And so we wanted to come back and provide some context and explanations about what's driving some of those numbers. So we put this schedule together, and it's called a bridge. And the first section that we see up there is all of the expense categories by the quarter, and then we identified that certain FTE changes happened within year over year. Q1 of '22, there was some turmoil within our admin group, and there were some open positions. Now they're fully filled, and so we have some higher expenses as a result of that. We added a purchasing manager. In Public Works, there were 6 new positions that were approved by the board, and they were added in Q1. In the rec, there was some change from an hourly to a salaried position between these 2 time periods, and it created the differences that you see there. Golf, Chris Sykes had departed, and so it left us a little bit of a credit on some salaried positions, and there were some openings as well. On ACC, there was 1 new code enforcement position that was added, and there was some transition of some staff as well. So all of those were related to people changes, in and out, open positions, and things that just happened in the normal course of business. We did have some overtime year over year, an increase of 21,000. So we've looked at that. Our overtime is about 7.7% for Q1 of '23 compared to 7.1% of Q1 '22. And so Chet and the staff are going to be examining what we can look at from an overtime perspective and try to reduce some of those. And then we had several events that happened that were compensationally documented. So beginning of the year, board approved a 5% increase in wages for staff, and so that resulted in a $69,000 increase in our budget. In 2022, The timing for an increase was as of April 1 of '22, and we changed that to a calendar year going into '23. So there's, in effect, two periods that are showing in Q1 of '23 that are not in Q1 of '22. And so we've identified those amounts. There was a $4 increase, excuse me, that we were trying to implement to help with some of the retainage of staff. And so we implemented that in the latter part of the year, and between the years, we ended up with $51,000. I apologize, I just realized that this is an older version of the slide that we had looked at earlier. There was one additional change that we had documented that in July, I believe it was, Winston Blazer had requested a salary survey be done for all of the salary positions within the POA, and those salaries were determined to be less than what the markets were, and some increases were placed. And so that makes up a portion of what's in that admin and salary lines. And then that last column, the other, is just the accruals between years. The number of days that they accrue for was different, and so we accounted for that as well. So there is a substantial increase. We understand that. We are still within budget. At Q1 at $1.8 million, we were still under budget. So from year to year, there were a lot of increases, a lot of changes, a lot of efforts to try to bring the group in line with some of the other locations and pay scales in the areas so that we retain the staff that have been here, because that longevity is what makes us a much better POA organization.
So Mickey, I mean, yeah, this is a good overview of where we stand today, but I guess just as a point of context, I want to be sure everybody understands is this is what's reviewed during the budget process.
Correct.
So when these decisions are made, they're made during the budget process in terms of adding people, in terms of increases, like you said, what we budget for. One of the things that is not shown on here, and we talked about this earlier too, is that sometimes decisions are made to add people to replace contract labor that we have in the past. And so what's not showing then is the offset in those other expense categories that we're expecting by increasing salary and burden.
Correct.
So just a point that in some of these cases where we add people, it's because we're trying to reduce overall expense, and that's not captured in this slide.
Correct. We further took a look at the hourly headcounts. There were some questions as to whether they had been substantially increasing over time. So we went back from 2019 to 22. We took a look at what the total hours that were paid for each of those years. That's the first series of columns. The next is the hourly part-time and seasonal staff. We went back to the individuals and looked at the hours. Those that were full-time, we counted as a single FTE. All others, we added up the hours and divided by a full year's standard work hours of 2,080. And you see those head counts equivalents for the hourly, part-time, and seasonal. Next series of columns are the salaried head counts. And the last series of columns is the total head count equivalents, the FTEs, for each of those years, 2019 through 22, by division. So we can see that as a result, over those 4-year period, there was a net increase of 3 for admin, 2 for ACC, 3 for golf, 2 for rec, 6.7, so a higher number there on public works. But if there's ever a group that is expanded, and I think some of that is what Marty was alluding to, is we added some positions there that alleviated some contract work that we were paying for as well. So a net increase over that 4-year period of 17, which is about 13%. And to that context, we went through and said, well, what happened in that same time period within the POA? We had an increase of 562 assessed lots of 9%. You can see the number of lots sold in each of those years. Golf rounds were up 42% from 2019 to 2022. Rec memberships also were up at a pretty high pace of 15% over that period. Homes built number of permits, just the volume of permits that are going through here. And every home that's sold suddenly adds another volume of review and management that ACC is required to do for those periods. So I think in context of this, the numbers aren't terribly out of line. It doesn't mean that there aren't areas where we couldn't go in and scrutinize them a bit and make some evaluations that perhaps we could reduce some headcounts and consolidate people. Maybe the circumstances for which they were hired are no longer within the group, and certainly we had a lot of permits were done, and the home sales have changed, so do we need to go back and reevaluate that? And that's part of what I think Chet is evaluating now, and we'll be able to report back out at the later date. So hopefully that provides some context to the question that was raised last quarter. Some questions came up in the new project, and it was mentioned a little bit through IT. So this is, I know this is a lot of detail, and you probably can't read too much of it, but I wanted to give some context about what we're planning to do to replace our accounting system. We're on an IBM AS400, and very DOS-based, very difficult to operate. We were down for 8 days this period. In fact, we just closed as of last night for the month of April because of some difficulties we had with the program. So it's definitely something we want to pursue, and the board has asked us to make that timeline. And I've outlined here what the group has done, and we think we've got a pretty good plan. We've submitted the RFPs. We've got 4 proposals back, some big names, some others that aren't quite so well known, but we'll be evaluating those proposals this week. In all the cases, they felt like we should be able to make that December 31st cutover deadline, but it'll take some pushing. And so we've got a member from every division, several from within the accounting group that'll meet. We haven't met in a couple of weeks just because of the transition of these, but we're now ready to get back on track and start making those evaluations and start hitting these deadlines. The estimate that we initially tagged for the contract was $400,000. In looking at 2 of the proposals, they are within that cost estimate and are substantially low. I won't say substantially, are low enough where we have some flexible room that if we needed to hire an outside consultant to help with the transition, we'd have some latitude to do that as well and still keep it within the budget. So the project is moving. We do have a pretty good plan in place. Everybody from all of the groups have voiced their opinions about how to do it. The nuts and bolts are fixing to get into it. Our analyst is going to be plugged into this, and we'll all hopefully be able to report back in progress on this each month. Is that it? Okay, so as I mentioned, we just closed April. We took just a very hurried look to run the financials and throw them onto these schedules. I haven't done any review, but I wanted to at least put it out there. I don't think there's going to be too much in the way of anything that we're going to find that's going to be of issue. We did validate that we have not had any integrity issues or loss of data. There were some things that were hung up that we have fixed and cleared up, but for the month, this is our assets, and we added the December 31st, 22 as a comparison so that we can kind of see some of the progress. So nothing too much out of line there. We do note that in the cash, we've had 16.6 million, and it's now at 18.9. We'll be moving another million out of our operating cash into our reserve fund on Monday. And we try to monitor that every 30 days or so and try to keep that down. Same with the liability side of the balance sheet. Short-term current liabilities are kind of an ebb and flow of where they are. We did want to point out that on our long-term liabilities, we've gone from 10.1 million to 9.8, so there's a steady reduction there of our debt, and then we'll continue to monitor that. And that's kind of summarized in this slide, what our cash position is and what our loans are. And so again, this is a Reader's Digest condensed version of the P&L. We haven't had a chance to do much in the way of review work. We're ahead of budget for our revenue, ahead of last year by $570,000. Cost of sales, we know we've got an issue on the tanks. It's a timing issue more than anything else, but it's still reflecting fairly negatively there. As we had mentioned before, our salaries and our benefits are below budget. They are substantially ahead of last year, as we've outlined earlier. But as the board has approved the budget, we are keeping within that. So right now, we're about $100,000 less on total wages and benefits. All of the other expenses are consolidated into that next total expense line, and we are substantially ahead by $762,000, most of which is in the maintenance, and we've pursued that to make sure that there's nothing that's being put off or postponed. So far, it's just been a timing issue. We haven't had the sewer leaks that we had in the prior years, and so some of it we will realize, but it's not a definite yet, so we'll see how that goes. The latter part is gain and loss in some of the assets. We did notice that the entry to post our interest income for the period did not get in, so that is yet to get posted. We got an issue with that. It's probably the one issue that I know I've got to pick up. But in that bottom line, when we look year over year and month over month, our surplus is at $2 million. We had budgeted to be about $600,000, and we're at about $2 million last year, so ahead of the game for all of that. Again, most of it is going to be within the maintenance side at this point. So to the board, we will go and finish our normal due diligence to examine all of the financials. We'll provide you a full set of reporting just as soon as we have a chance to get back to it. I would say probably by Monday we should be able to have that to you.
We were projecting a loss for April?
Well, if you look at that next to the last line, $800,000 on reserve maintenance, and again, that's a big chunk of it. On our capital and reserve schedule, there were a number of material maintenance items that were supposed to hit. Those have, through some timing issues, have not. They were the Chota Fire sprinkler system, some of the parking, the road sealing, the rec courts. There's 2 of those that we had budgeted to have already in place, and some $133,000 on some of the sewer work. So all of those are still in the works, but for various reasons they have been postponed. They'll come back and offset some of that.
Okay.
Mickey, you may want to mention the status of the audited statements.
Yep. I received a call from the accounting firm, and they requested a delay in presenting the audit reports. We had hoped for them to be here today. I got the feeling that it was their own internal struggles in trying to get everything completed with competing clients. We gave them a little bit of time, and so next month, I believe on the first week of the next month, the audit committee is scheduled to meet with them, and they're going to present the full audited financials. I've asked for a heads up on any items that might be of concern, and so far they said there's nothing to report. So I don't anticipate it'll be a formality, and then I think they're scheduled to present to the board at next month's board meeting. We believe we renegotiated how we price the contracts for the audit and the tax work to a standard hourly rate, and we think we've been efficient enough with it where we should see some savings. Last year we paid about $55,000. This year we hope to be in about $35,000 range. So we hope to pick up some numbers there. We'll see how it plays out, but I believe that's where the numbers are going to be. Funding reserves for our capital request, we have 5 to present, and so you should have received those through emails, and we won't present all of the detail there, but did want to talk about each of them and let you provide information about these items. So there's, on the initial budget, we had the $5 million sewer holding tank project, of which we thought that $1 million would be started in the year 2023. And so we presented a request for $220,000, which is the initial engineering on this sewer and holding tank pump station evaluation. This project also has the potential to get a $2 million grant to help offset some of these costs, but this first 220 is being requested for the engineering studies and some drawings to be made.
I'll make a motion to approve the expenditure of $220,000 for engineering and design work associated with the main lift station and wastewater storage tank project funded from reserves.
So a motion and a second to approve the expenditure for the sewer holding tank and pump station. Any discussion?
Question. I realize that Jacobs has been our engineering firm forever and a day. So on the quote sheet, obviously, you just have one supplier, Jacobs. So I guess it's more towards Chet. Chet, when do you anticipate that we are going to start having some competitive bids with Jacobs Engineering to see if we're paying market or we're paying a premium or getting a discount?
Well, one of the issues you have to ask before you even go down that road is, are we done with this project, or do we want to start midstream and change engineering companies to take a look at it?
Right.
And that's a decision the board would have to make.
Yeah.
The answer to that in my head is no. But I do believe that there's nothing wrong with looking for competitive bids. It is a standard practice amongst all property management companies and property management processes to say that there are certain things that associations are allowed to, open to, probably suggested to, not necessarily go out to bids every time you want to do a project. One of them is your legal counsel. Two is your engineering staff. And there are other specific technical folks that you may not want to go out to bid for. The part of the reason we went out for the architect for Tanasi was because we just didn't know anybody. We just didn't have anybody that we could put our finger on and say, hey, we've used them a dozen times, they're great. But to your point, I have no problem going out and looking for another engineering firm. But I think that looking for another engineering firm in the middle of a project is a problem.
I agree.
Now,
But at some point, we're going to have to say, we need to bite the bullet, not in the middle of a project, but get some competitive quotes against Jacobs, in my opinion.
Yeah, but also to Clayton, if you would come up, and John Tierney with the PSAC is back there. They've been doing that. They've been reaching out to other engineering firms. We had one lined up to do Kahiti, and they had to study, and they backed out. Could you update?
Yes, sir. We've reached out to W.K. Dixon and a couple others, which at the time we're not able to do it. But I do agree with you. When we start some new projects, it would be great to get another set of eyes looking at our system.
We also have Jeff DeGulla as our purchasing manager, and he is helping to spearhead that expansion of vendors that we can use from our selected. So he's been very instrumental in some of the other areas as well.
I would like to really throw a monkey in the wrench here, a wrench in the cogs, or whatever the acronym is, and ask that the board set aside a time for a specific meeting to where I can review all the vendors that we have with you and ask questions and debate with you whether it's time to look for other vendors, or at least time to go out and evaluate other vendors to be sure that we are getting the best bang for our buck, so to speak. And I don't think that's a business meeting. It's not really where you vote. You're just giving me your opinions on which way we should go. And I'll leave it up to you whether you feel that's a value or not, but I think it would be.
I think it is.
I would appreciate your input, for lack of a better word, as we go through this and give you my ideas and have you respond to them.
I'd just like to note that the Finance Committee did review all these projects last Friday in depth, and they did approve all these projects.
That's
For the
correct.
record.
They recommended them.
Recommend, I'm sorry, recommend.
Careful.
Just for our own knowledge, we would never bring one to the board unless the FAC has signed off on it. So all of these will always be fully recommended by the FAC.
And possibly the PSAC as well?
Well, all of the advisory committees have to sign off before it gets to that, and the FAC's guidelines are not to vote on the validity of whether or not the project is good, because we obviously won't know, but the individual advisory committees have to sign off and provide that same confirmation before it gets to the FAC.
If you remember when I had my Committee 101, there were steps that had to be met before it moved forward so that the board never has to ask the question, did everybody look at this? Because finance is going to go, I don't see a signature on here. Have a nice day. Let me know when you guys have reviewed it and come back to me. That's their job.
Good. Any more questions or comments on the line item number 1? With that, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of going forward with the $220,000 for the sewer holding tank? Raise your right hand. Pass 7-0.
Next one is a secondary request on the ODOCs. Initially, there was a request, $219,000, that was for the purchase of the materials. They're now ready to implement that, and the cost is expected to be about $76,500, slightly under the budget of the $300,000. So this is just the balance on that particular project.
So I move to approve the expenditure of $76,469 for costs associated with the installation of ODOC funded from reserves.
Second by Pat. So it's been moved and second to fund the completion of ODOC. Any discussion?
Boy, I'm sure glad we moved NDOC last year. It would have been too expensive to move this year and caused probably a 3-month delay. Thank you, board, for approving that. It was not hard.
Any other questions or comments? With that, a call for a vote. All in favor of completing the ODOC? Raise your right hand. Pass 7-0. Next item.
Third item is a broom for the skid steer, which will enable the public works to be a little more efficient in some of their cleanup work. This one is below the threshold, so it's been approved by Chet, but we provide it here for information. The original budget was $13,000, and through some work by Jeff and Clayton, they were able to find one at a reduced price, saving about $4,000. Next one on the list is the road work contract that's expected to be, it's a part of the 10-year maintenance plan, budgeted at $1.195 million. This is phase 1 of that plan, which is related to sealing of parking lots and roads. The request is $340,098.
Move to approve the expenditure of $340,098 for selected street and parking lot sealing and striping funded from reserves.
It's been moved and second to approve the expenditure of $340,098 for road and parking lot maintenance. Any discussion?
Clayton, there's going to be paving projects that come next, right?
Yes, sir, we're working on quotes now.
And when do you expect them to come to the board?
Well, we hope to have a funding request in front of the board next month.
Okay.
Clayton, while you're there, was it a 30-year maintenance plan we had on the roads that we
No.
developed like 3-4 years ago?
No, it was 15.
Okay, has that been updated?
Yes, sir.
And has PSAC reviewed and approved it?
Yes, sir, I have been working with Mr. Hofer through this process.
So if I had Ed up here, he'd say, oh yeah, it's good.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Clayton, I guess the only question on this project is, have we addressed all the concerns of PSAC? I believe they submitted a 3-page list of concerns with this particular request.
They have been addressed. Jeff DeGola, again, part of our purchasing, and his responsibilities is to make sure that as these contracts go forward, that they have been documented and signed, that all the required insurances have been documented, that any agreements within there for performance have been complied with. So at this point, we don't think that there's any issue. I reached out to Jeff, been sick for a couple of days, but he confirmed that all of the issues on this particular item have been addressed and managed.
Yeah, so John is back there.
I was gonna
John, if
say,
you-
John's here.
If you could answer the question. And John's the chairman of PSAC, by the way. Thanks for letting me put you on the spot, buddy.
Yeah, now we're going to commence to beat you.
No, we're not.
The bids for this project came in after the PSAC meeting happened, so we had to do a lot of discussion via email, and there was a lot of back and forth with Clayton and with Jeff to get bits and pieces of information we might have been able to handle by conversation at the meeting instead. So we did have some concerns. We only got 2 bids, and the low bidder is acceptable. The second low bidder actually qualified his bid and said, here's the price, but if the price of the material changes during the project, then my price is going to change. So it really is a qualified bid, and we recommend that those kind of bids be rejected by the POA. So in essence, we only have one responsible bidder on this project, but it's somebody who's acceptable to the staff. So this is the seal coat part of the project. The name says a 10-year project, but it's the seal coat part of the annual paving projects.
Good, thanks, John.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things to keep in mind, gentlemen, and I know this is an ongoing issue, and I am the #1 proponent of getting 3 bids. One of the gotchas, and that we're not reporting well, is that we may send out 5 bids, and 2 of the 5 bidders come back and go, we don't want to bid on it. Or the 3rd bidder, in this case, started to bid on it and then went, nah, I don't want to do this. I'm not going to have time to do it. And so we ended up being stuck with 2 bids. It's not that we didn't go out and get more bids. It's just that they refused as the process went on. And we've had that in multiple cases of other things we've bid for, is people come back and say, yeah, we're going to bid on that. And so you say, okay, cool, I got 5. Well, by the end of the day, you may have 3 if you're lucky with the wind up your skirt that actually, came through. So I don't want the board to think we've lost sight of the fact that we are required, and it is in our best interest to get as many bids as we can.
And it was the same with the Tanasi architectural
Yeah,
bid. It was exactly the same.
Yeah, we had 5, I think, I don't know, Beth, was it 4? We had 4 people bid on that, and at least one of them went, yeah, we're going to do it. No, we're not. And that's the reality of the world we live in terms of getting bids.
Right.
Well, and I totally agree that if somebody submits a qualified bid, it's not a bid. Yeah.
Unqualified.
No.
Okay, with that,
They
we'll
qualify,
call
yeah.
for a vote. All in favor of approving $340,098 for road work? 7-0 pass.
One quick comment, though, per our conversation last year, shouldn't we be bidding next year's projects now, so we're not in this cycle of they don't have the bandwidth to do it current year?
Those proposal will be brought to you when the other paving projects are brought to you for this year. So next year's projects will be presented to y'all when we come for this year's paving projects. So we'll be coming for a fund request, hopefully in June, no later than July, for this year's paving. But then we'll present to you all the numbers and stuff for next year's paving projects at the same time. So
This is the
board
first
will know.
year.
But will those be firm bids?
Yeah,
A caveat.
they can't lock it in because of asphalt price.
Yeah, that's
but-
what I thought.
Yeah, but it'll be close.
It'll get you on your schedule.
I understand.
And John, this is the first year, so it's kind of weird, This is the first year we've been able to do this for the next year, because we just approved this last year for him to do it this year.
Right.
Yeah.
Last item is the yacht club elevator, and as everybody has seen, they've been working it. The original budget was $172,500. It's come in at slightly less at $162,200. So the work has started. We're just trying to catch up. This one was originally a project for 2022, and somewhere in the process, we lost getting this one submitted. So a little bit after the fact, and I apologize for that, but it was on the budget and should have been a pre-approved, but we ask that you come back and approve it.
This was
I
brought up
thought we approved it.
November.
This one was?
Yep.
I couldn't find the documentation for it,
The,
so.
uh,
I thought we did this one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, excuse me.
Yeah, that's the bid, that's the one you should be bringing is the final bid, which you don't have, I mean, the final cost, which you don't have yet.
As long as it's within the parameters, it shouldn't be a problem, but I
Right.
just didn't think that we had submitted this one, so my apologies for that one. That's right.
Mickey, I'd like to piggyback on what John was talking about with, with Clayton, about getting in the production schedule next year. From my past experience, we used to buy a lot of materials for a certain process, and there were maybe 2 or 3 manufacturers in the world that could supply it to us, but the problem was demand was high, and if you didn't get in queue early, you may not get what you need, which means you would shut down production.
Yep.
So what we would do is we go out and get a contract, basically, a requirements contract with a supplier that might date 1, 2, 3 years to lock out a block of time or production in their lines, unpriced. You could put some parameters in to protect the supplier with regard to raw material price increasing and maybe have a conversion cost. But at some point, we know we're gonna have road, you've got a 15-year plan. Granted, it changes every year, but you know you're gonna have several $100,000 a year. We ought to find a supplier, partner with them, and let's get time blocked out in their production schedule.
Yeah, we'll work with PSAC and with Clayton and his team to try to avail ourselves. of
Jeff ought to know how to do that with
Yeah.
his past experience.
Yeah. Okay. Jeff and Clayton have had some conversations about that. Last topic, I think, is just a heads up. In preparation for the 2024 budget, we're getting close to that kickoff. This year, we're going to be very defined in how we go about the data integrity, the distribution, who gets the data, who can't, how they're going to get it, when they get it, how we're going to consolidate it, how it's going to be stored, distributed. So all of this starts with the calendar for the year, and so these dates are just to let you know that we're on top of it. We have the date to present to the board on August 11th to solicit your recommendations for revenue increases, inflation indexes, whatever other factors that want to be held to that.
2 things to keep in mind. We need the annual budget, but we also need a 10-year plan, which we didn't get this year because of the new staff coming in.
Yep.
So we have a forecast of cash flows out 11 years.
Correct.
Number 2 is we ought to get the same number of periods of your balance sheet as of 12/31. So in your plan and in your 10-year, we'd have 11 years of balance sheets to see what happens with the assets, liabilities, et cetera.
I can't do that many years. My recommendation is that you cull that down to 5, only because you can't, if I go out beyond 5, it's so much of a guess that it's probably not worthwhile.
Well, depending on what you see from the 15-year road plan, because several years ago, when we had that as a guide for our 10-year plan,
Yeah.
there were years, 5, 6 years out, where we had significant refurbishing of the roads, jumping the capital, the requirement of $3 to $4 million versus an annual spend of $1 million.
That's
And
fair.
those are the blips that we were looking for in the 10-year plan to see if we could smooth them.
Okay. We'll look at it from that perspective. And
We really
and
need
try
to get that baked into the reserve analysis, so we're now have 2 separate plans, and we can easily just run a report out of that. And if you want to talk about the discussion at the FAC last week about 5 versus 10.
Yeah, 5 is kind of a general topic for forecasting, and its experience says that if you go beyond that, it's tough. I agree that if you've got capital provisions that are going to go out to that, it should at least be a footnote, if not baked into that.
So to John's point that he just made, that is exactly why we have a reserve study.
Yeah.
Because that reserve study acts as that guide for our 10 years, looking for those, what was the word you used, blips on the radar coming in. And then our financial reports is based on 5 years, because that's out at the range where we can at least be realistic in our numbers. Does that make sense? Because that's what, I mean, that's why I was mentioning earlier in the reserve study, we need that in place to be able to look at the budget for all the reasons you just said.
And the other reason is, as we get closer to build-out, we all know we're going to get to that cliff where you can't count on new POA lots sold to increase your assessments.
See,
And
I like the
also-
term plain, not cliff, because
Okay.
cliff implies
Okay.
fall.
Well, you flatten out.
Yeah, you're flattening out.
All
There
right, so the $2 million a year we're getting in ACC fees are going away, so that's why you need a longer-term plan to look at that. When do you
It's the
get to that
difference
point?
between a green slope and a double black diamond.
To that comment on the reserve study, we recognize that our group is behind in updating that reserve study. Competing pressures of workloads. But we are going to bring that back up, and now that we have Jim Hinckley as part of our staff, he's been tasked to go in and get familiar with the software and acclimate and make those corrections, so we'll see that. But it's mostly going to be done in tandem with preparation for the budget, because we go through that exercise anyway. What are the capital outlays? What are your expectations? What are the planning? What new items are going to come up? What came off? All of those would get baked into the reserve study, so it's coming. It's just going to be a part of that.
Yeah, so everything hinges on the reserve study. No pressure, Jim.
So, for the August 11th meeting, we're going to need, the salary compensation data.
Okay.
That'll have to come from your HR department.
Okay.
And they should be out there surveying at about that time. And then we're also going to need to know what the end of June inflation number is.
Okay. We looked at the CPI over the last 12 months, and so far it's about 5% is the max.
That'd be good news.
Okay.
That's it.
Any other questions for Mickey? All right, thanks, Mickey.
Thank you.
Oh, do have a question.
What is our, my name is Rick Thompson, I'm on the Rec Advisory Committee. What is the current employment status of all the employees of Tellico Village? I know the last couple of years, we have all these openings that we can't fill or having difficulty filling. Where are we with that as far as Tellico Village in general?
So are you asking us if we have openings?
Yes, and what number, how many, and also,
Yeah.
I could not hear the question.
Question was, where are we with staffing? Do we have any current opens? Are we behind? Are we ahead? Where are we?
We have one opening in Public Works that came about this week.
Oh, yeah.
The rest of them are pretty full.
what about seasonal, part-time, things like that?
We have one opening, it's seasonal. And they've already interviewed the hired person.
Right.
So we're pretty fully staffed.
Yes,
Great.
we are.
And turnover has been very, very low, which helps minimize those openings.
And to that point, that's what makes it so critical in my current study of what we're doing and how we're doing it and why we're doing it is going to be, from our current standpoint, the most accurate, is because I'm never going to have the excuse, well, we didn't have enough bodies. So pretty much we're at the level we're supposed to be at, so we can evaluate, are we really operating at the level we need to be, better or worse?
Okay, thank you. With that, Kevin's up.
All right, I just had a very brief update. We had promised follow-up from our ongoing discussions about various permitting and code enforcement issues. As you may recall, this discussion originated with permitting and requirements and rules specific to rentals in Tellico Village. And Chet held a forum with various stakeholders involved with rentals in Tellico Village. And from that forum, the discussion broadened to a more all-inclusive review of permitting requirements and enforcement of rules within Tellico Village. And rightfully so, the board believes that we need to address this from a broader perspective than just rentals, and that comes both with establishing new and different permit requirements, evaluating permit fees, and probably most significantly, evaluating enforcement mechanisms. One enforcement mechanism we've not had historically is a fining authority. That wasn't included in our original governing documents. However, now that the POA has development rights, we have the ability to amend the protective covenants to include some fining mechanisms for various rule violations or permit violations. Last month, the board tasked the ACC to come up with some preliminary ideas and proposals. They're pretty broad-based and dealt with initial permitting fees, permitting requirements, looking at establishing rules relative not only to all operations, both from those that are operating rentals, home occupations, but more broadly to include home maintenance and grounds maintenance for all existing properties, both from a residential and commercial standpoint. The ACC has had a workshop after last meeting, and made a number of recommendations, which the board is currently evaluating and considering. So we do expect to follow up with a more comprehensive report that's going to be involved with a update to the Blue Book. And so we'll be coming back after further discussion with the ACC. The board will be presenting this information to the public, and ultimately the next step will be adopting an amendment to the protective covenants, for one, to increase the enforcement mechanism to allow fining, and secondarily to enhance the Blue Book to tie in the various rules and regulations and requirements that will be associated. So that discussion and process will be continuing in the next few months, but we expect to make some headway very soon, and we'll come back to the property owners with our recommendations and ultimately back to the board for open session for approval of the various amendments. Any questions?
Yes. At the last town hall meeting, as I was exiting, a property owner, nice lady, walked up to me and said, "I choose you as my board member. I can't be at the meeting, and I want you to bring this up." And so that's what I'm doing now for her. She listened to Chet, and she heard a term called creep, which is as the, and Chet talked about the number of rentals increasing slowly, invisibly, and then over a period of time, you look up and today we may have 10%, and 5 years from now it might be 65%. We just never knew it was coming, and she was very concerned about that and wanted me to bring it up. What I would like to do is, and having talked to some of the fellow board members, is to task, while you guys are cleaning up what we've asked you to do and look at again and the procedures to go through changing the covenants and restrictions, I would like for you to go back and look at the percentage that we should be allowing to be rented in Tellico Village. This is a number I think should be based on total platted properties, not a number that's going to be moving as we sell properties, but this is how many properties will be in Tellico Village, maximum you could ever build, and what we as a community feel would be adequate to support the rental community. And it's very important because there's a number of us that rented property here prior to building. There's a number of us that have children that come in and rent a house for a week or so. And there are a lot of people that use this as part of their retirement income and whatever. So it's beneficial on both sides. And the hard part of this is, as Chet says, you don't want to be in the rental business, so we don't want to do this as a POA, but at the same time, I don't think there needs to be that many type of, anyway, lose my train of thought. So I'm just asking, would the ACC, would you take it back to them and determine your recommendation on your next review with what you think the percentage rental should be capped at?
Yeah, absolutely. We can undertake that discussion. Now, that is a longer-term plan and discussion, and the reason being is this. With respect to adding in fining authority and rulemaking authority and enforcement mechanism, That can be done through an amendment of the protective covenants. And the board, the association, now has the authority to do that with the developer rights. However, impacting, restricting rentals themselves goes beyond just the protective covenants and would have to be an amendment to the declaration, which would then require a 2/3 written approval of all members. So again, we can certainly undertake the process. We can certainly start that discussion with the ACC, but I want to make clear that everybody understands that's a much more all-encompassing process and a much longer process, and would ultimately require a 2/3 membership approval in order to implement very specific rental restrictions on properties. There's also some other statutory provisions that have to be followed as well, but certainly the ACC is willing to start that discussion, that process on a parallel path with evaluating the various enforcement mechanisms in place.
Can you please repeat the difference again, so everybody's...
Sure. Yeah, with the association has the authority to amend what's called the protective covenants. The protective covenants are an exhibit to the declaration. The protective covenants specifically deal with land use and deal with authority to control what's done on the land. Now, generally, an amendment to restrict rentals entirely would have to be done through an amendment to the declaration itself. And that, unfortunately, the POA doesn't have the unilateral authority to amend the declaration. That requires a 2/3 vote.
Okay, but said changes that are needed that the board might vote on, that does not require 2/3, that can happen.
That's correct. The changes we're discussing right now with respect to implementing some specific rules, with respect to implementing fines, those can be done by this board through approval. But anything to prohibit rentals, for example, entirely, or to cap rentals at a certain percentage would have to be done through an amendment to the declaration.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
So as it applies to rentals, I want to be sure that everybody understands, and I've used this analogy before, that you're driving through the countryside you've never been in before, it's late at night, and you stop to look at your map to figure out where you are, and some guy walks up and taps on your window and says, hey, you know you stopped right on a train, and it's about to come through here in the next 15 minutes. You might want to move. I'm that guy. When it comes to rentals, here's how this is going to play out. If we don't, and when I say we, I sincerely mean the community. The board can stand on their head and spin on a head of a pin. It isn't going to change that. It is only the community that has the ability to change this. If you don't make these changes because of where we are and the type of community we are, meaning we're right dead center in the middle of resort heaven and holiday heaven and summertime vacation heaven, that we are going to turn into a rental community before you knew it happened. And I can give you all kinds of analogies, but here's what it comes down to. There is probably double what we think there is in the village currently renting, at least double, that have not raised their hand, that we don't know about, and they're renting. Those people vote. So when he said, for us to change this, we need 2/3 vote of the community, that's the total number of community, to vote yes to change this. So that in and of itself is a landmark change. But keep in mind, that number over here that nobody's really identified precisely is going to vote no, because you're now screwing with their income. Further, you've got to look at all those people who know mom and dad are about to retire and I'm going to be stuck with the house. The cool thing is it's paid off. So I can rent that and have another additional income coming in. And it's right in the right spot. And if they're really lucky, mom and dad had a place on the water, really can rent it. And we can do VRBOs, and we can make crazy money of $3,000, $4,000 a night over a weekend, and blah, blah, blah. The only reason I am bringing this up now is because now it has the possibility of changing, but it will have to be driven by the community. I can jump up and down and scream and holler all I want. The board can agree with me and say it's a wonderful idea. If the community doesn't get off the dime and make the decision, it won't happen. And at the end of the day, right now, Norris Lake, 85% rental. Think about that number for a while. 85% rental at Norris Lake. They're no longer a housing community. They're a rental community. They might as well be called a big condo. And that's where we're headed if we don't change that, we don't turn that corner. And I am not against rentals, and I need to say that out loud. They bring a wonderful service to this community in terms of short-term rentals, letting people come in for the weekend, view the property, find a piece of land they want, buy it, move in, all those good things. But if we don't put a cap on this, there's going to be a run on this property, ultimately, that you didn't expect, and by the time you do see it, it will be too late. The other provision that he was talking about is all those people that we don't know about yet, or we do know about, who are currently renting long-term, like more or less they don't rent their house for anything less than a year, and it's usually more than that. Those people will be covered under provision from the state that says they're grandfathered in no matter what you do. So those people are here forever. The ones that currently exist are here forever. So that's why I'm saying you have got to, as a community, make a decision how you want this to go. I don't have a dog in this hunt, you do. So that's why I'm trying to raise my hand and say, kids, make a decision, because you're going to have to do that. The board can't make it for you, seriously.
Well, you actually do have a dog in this fight, since you're living here.
I don't have a dog in the vote except one. I get to vote, one.
And we've been throwing around the word community. Let me clarify that. That's a 2/3 vote of every single property owner.
Correct.
That's not just the people that live here.
So that the other side of that is that becomes quite an expense to try to get that vote even set up and cast.
And in fact, it's more than a vote, it's written notarized signatures. So
Yeah.
it's a major undertaking.
It's if we were to stop all rentals, not modify it.
Well, I think if you were to cap rentals.
You can't modify beyond what's in the covenants right now.
A cap would have the same requirement.
Yeah.
But his question is true, only if we want to change something.
That's right.
Yeah, this is only if you want to change it. If you're good with the way it is, I'll sit down and shut up. Really, seriously. I'm just saying, this is where I see the train coming. You have to make a decision about whether you want to get run over or not. And if you don't care and it's not important to you, Bob's your uncle.
John, you got a comment? Okay.
Would you need a quorum of property owners?
It's not a quorum or a vote, you need to get 2/3 of the signatures. Signatures.
Two-thirds of every property owner has to vote yes.
That's correct. 2/3 of all owners have to sign.
And say yes.
A non-vote is a no, basically.
That's correct.
That's a nice way of saying it's almost impossible to do.
It's very difficult.
We have a
Yeah.
comment.
So Dave Johnson, here in the community, Chet, you said we gotta get off our duffs to do something. What's the process? Is it going through the ACC? Does the ACC have to instigate this, or do the property owners need to do something?
So what I
What's it gonna
need,
take
okay,
to start it?
that's a great question. So what really needs to first happen is that there has to be a groundswell of homeowners going to the board and saying, we need to change this, we need to make this step. Then that comes to the board, and the board sets me in motion. That's when we go with the attorney, with the staff, we set up a program, and it'll take us every bit of 6 to 9 months if everybody in the community really wanted to do it, because you've got this problem of I've got to go out, get a notarized signature, my signature on a form, that's got to come into me. I've got to calculate that, because we have to go to court then and say, we're about to make these changes. We have all the appropriate notarized signatures to do that. And so it is a step-by-step process that can't happen overnight.
So what do you mean by groundswell? Because it sounded like.
Okay, 10
and
people.
The ACC can put a 10%.
Yeah.
So what comes first? The ACC saying
No.
it's going to be at 10%?
ACC cannot make that decision. This is the one thing the ACC cannot do.
No, the recommendation.
They could recommend something.
They can make recommendations.
Yeah.
Conceptual recommendations only.
Yeah, they can recommend that you do something. What I mean by a groundswell is more than 10 people, or more realistically, more than Chet standing here going, hey, you got to do something. If more than 10 people are going to the board, here's the problem, guys. Let me put this in perspective. About 2,600 people voted at the last annual meeting. Now, there's over 5,000 here in the community. So that's why when we say, you know, with pale faces, 2/3 of the community, I mean, that's just about like saying, I think we have a prayer in hell at getting this done. But if the association makes the decision, the community, the homeowners say, we've got to do this, it will happen, but it will not, it will be a process.
And this is the property owner that stopped me at this meeting, walks up to me and says, "You're the board member I choose." That's the statement she wanted to bring out today. She wants you and everybody else to join her to say, there's nothing wrong with a rental, long-term or short-term. We need them, but we don't want to be overwhelmed by them.
So do you want a written signatures, or do you need 10 people in here to say that?
The board needs a group of people. I just said 10 arbitrary. I don't care what that number is, but the board needs to know that.
Written signatures?
As far as I'm concerned, guys, if you get an email from somebody, that's as good as a written signature in terms of, we're interested, please do something.
All right.
But what needs to happen is that it can't be the gospel according to Chet. It has to be the gospel according to Telego Village.
And my question was, how do we get it started?
That's how we get it
Because
started.
There's a lot of talk, but there's no action. Needed to find out what is the action needed to get this thing moving.
Homeowners have to request it. They have to go to the board. They have to make the board understand this is something that the homeowners desire.
Okay. Thank you.
Property owners.
Property owners.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Property owners. Killing.
Joe Bogardus. Some numbers. We have how many property owners that are actually, these are paying property owners. We have like 6,850 buildable lots in the village. Is this paying, or is this?
It's all property owners, unfortunately. Yeah, there's no distinction.
So
in the
we need,
declaration.
so we need.
They'd have to be in good
We will need.
Well, it's not a vote.
We
It
will
says
need.
requires signature of 2/3 of property owners.
Really?
Okay.
So they cannot be paying assessments and.
So we will need.
It's not a vote, it's a distinction. Yeah.
We will need 2/3 of 6,850.
About 4,500 plus.
Is that the right number? Or is it, what if we have condos?
Yeah.
They're in that number. That's roughly the right number.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay,
Those are all yes.
yes, okay.
Yes,
Mitzi,
handwritten
will you-
signatures with notaries.
Mitzi, will you just, because he's asking what it's going to take, give what it took last time from the number of years,
So the
yada,
la-
yada?
the
Yeah,
last
we've
time
done this
we-
before. Let Mitzi tell you what the steps were.
The last time we went through this process, it actually began in 2006. We actually finished the project in 2008, 2 years. We had a committee of about 15 to 20 residents that were, when Beth mentioned earlier to the board, a call center. It truly was a call center. Our IT department set up about 20 phones that were landline phones in our conference room, and every day for about 6 to 9 months, whichever of those property owners could come, they would come and call. We would provide a list every day of the names of folks that we had not heard from. They would make those phone calls just like telemarketers and try to explain exactly what we were trying to do. As the documents came in, I collected those, kept up with those, made sure they were notarized. We made it all the way down to the wire, and I had, a stack this thick of the paperwork ready to finally go, a stack, one for Loudoun County, one for Monroe County, because you have to have a registered document in both counties. We got pushed back from the Loudoun County Register of Deeds saying they needed the original signatures, not just a photocopy of our document. So our attorney at that time actually had to go back and find a statute that explained that no, we don't have to have the original signatures. The postage alone, in addition to what we had to pay for the document to be registered in the courthouse, we were close to about $60,000 there. But that doesn't, take into consideration the time that the staff spent and the hours. I currently have all the originals in the office. They're in fireproof safes. Of course, we've kept those all these years. But it was very, very tedious, time-consuming. Nobody understood, why are you doing this? And it was a small change at that time, so I think something as contentious as this.
It was an innocuous change
It-
regarding
it
the
would
time
be-
period for the effectiveness of amendments.
Yeah,
I mean, it was nothing of a controversial substance.
yeah, so anyway. Well, it was approximately about 80,000, I believe, if you.
So it's about $80,000, so I'm still back to my original. Then, yeah, it was 80,000 then. So the reality of this is the property owners have to be dedicated to this process. It cannot be something that the executive staff or the board initiates. The property owners have to be dedicated. It is not cheap. In my opinion, it will benefit them in the long run, but somebody somewhere has to decide one way or the other.
You know, what's interesting is, I would think that a lot of the people that currently rent houses might vote yes, because that reduces the competition.
And here's the thing, are all our long-term renters who are smart enough to know that, the yearly renters, I should say, not long-term, but our yearly renters, they already know what the statute is. They're going to vote yes anyway, because it doesn't affect them. It doesn't bother them in one way or the other. They're grandfathered in, for lack of a better word. So that's probably true.
Mike Robbins, Malaco area. I got a couple things I want to mention on this. Council, I just have a quick question because I guarantee you people watching this live or later are confused about one issue in here today. Okay, the 2/3 that need to vote on getting rid of rentals, keeping them, is clear.
Or limiting.
Okay, but is that wasn't made clear before? Is it also if we go to a certain percentage that can be, that is also 2/3 then?
That's correct.
Okay. What helped us out, my wife and I, when we were here for a month, John and Annie had a rental, I don't know their last name, in Toqua. We were in there for a month. Some of the Del Webbs in the country, other areas that, like ourselves, that we're in, Tellico Village, it's a 6-month or a year. Our house was being built. We were 8-10 minutes away. I was over there at night all the time checking it, setting up the cameras, security cameras, turning on the lights, looking around, sitting there for a little bit listening. That month was fantastic. We also were allowed to have our dog in this rental. If we go, I just wanted to bring up, if it's a month issue or period of time issue, that's not really what's important. What you brought up, Chet, is very important, and what the board members brought up too, some of them, is the percentage and what's happening in other areas. It's not the time, it's the percentage.
That's absolutely correct. I'm not talking about, and I completely concur, and I can give you thousands of anecdotal reasons why having some short-term rentals in the community is to the benefit of the community, not to a detriment.
Absolutely.
And so that's the point. But the point is putting a ceiling on the percentage of rentals, period.
Correct.
That's really the bottom line.
Correct, and I think we're reaching some clarity in here today. On the backside of this with fines, sometimes people will say, okay, we have enough rules. We don't need any more rules. You know you're in a POA. You moved in here, okay? We need to have rules that keeps things above board. We also need to have fines for people that are not being practical or rational and they want to stay in non-compliance. That gives you something as a GM, which you're doing a very good job at here, by the way, to dig your teeth into. It also gives our board members something to dig our teeth into. So as far as fines go or rules, they're needed. They're important. Thank you.
Yeah, and one thing that I don't think was made clear is that we're not really adding any rules. All we're doing is adding fines to the rules that we currently have, that when we get to a certain point, all we can do is say bad boy.
Existing rules.
Yes.
Correct. And, who knows in the future? We may have more rules come up that have to deal with common law nuisances, whether it's light pollution issues, aggravating wind chimes at night, whatever. But,
You got that in, didn't you, Michael?
Yeah, I had to get that in there. But the fines are important. You guys have something to dig your teeth into.
Okay, so it's almost 4:30, so we need to keep going here because we need to give the room up. So we're to the other portion. Do we have any others from
I've
the
got
board?
two real quick. Okay, one. Yeah. Let me get my microphone so nobody will. Okay, so the POA received a letter, the POA board received a letter, and it was an anonymous letter regarding a townhouse neighborhood. And if you're not aware, all the townhouses have an executive committee, and that executive committee elects a member to serve on the Tellico Village Townhouse Association Board. And they meet second or third Tuesday, so it was yesterday. When we got the letter, it got included in our packet. That was the first I saw it and first of any of us saw it. And I then called, because I'm the liaison to TVTA, called the chairman of that and said, let's discuss this letter because there's some issues here. What letter? So now we've got an anonymous letter that was addressed to the POA that says CC TVTA, and they didn't get the letter. So then he calls the specific neighborhood and says, did you get this letter? And he says, no, I did not. Now, this is a 7-page letter, right? Okay, so we then had a conversation yesterday at the Tellico Village Townhouse Association, and they've accepted, well, it's not accepted, they're going to take care of the letter. I've got no way, nor does this board have any way to respond to the anonymous writer of this letter. So I'm using this forum today, that video camera, to say, I'm not going to send you a reply. It's in the hands of TVTA. They've committed to get back with this problem issue with this neighborhood. Okay? That's number one. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think the only thing that to add there is that really, if you want the board to act on anything, it cannot be anonymous.
Put your name on it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that, any committee, anything, all of our committees, all of them, none of them, when they receive an anonymous letter, can act on it or do anything with it. It's a waste of paper.
Okay, now here's this one's tough. I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway, and I'm going to preface it this way. I'm begging you folks. I got my hands together. I'm still sitting in the seat. I'll get on my knees if you want me to. All one of you's got to do is say, Pat, get on your knees and beg, and I'll do it. Based on what I'm about to say. All right?
Just do it.
Here we go. All right. Chet talked about we've got people that are frustrated with Republic, and they're taking their trash cans to property owners that are building houses and throwing their trash in their dumpsters. These people are paying for this. We've got people that with this are going to businesses around here and throwing their trash in the businesses. They're paying for this. The people throwing the trash are not. They're coming to the TVPOA and they're throwing it in your dumpsters, and we're having to pay more for this. You follow? I'm begging you, don't do this. Don't do this. There's cameras there. They're going to catch you. Don't do it. Now, this then goes to the real thing. You're off. I'm off again. No, this says I'm off. There we go. Okay. So, in reviewing some issues that are going on in Tellico Village, and this is a part, please, you just, there's no accusations here, there's no blaming, there's no reason why, I'm just giving you the facts, is that we have to retile one of the showers in the wellness center, and the person goes in there, removes the tile, scrapes it down, puts the grout up, puts the tiles on the wall, puts a barrier up that says out of service, and a person wanted to take a shower, so they remove the barrier, go in, run the shower with the wet grout, and all the tile falls off, and we have to do it again. You go to the exercise room, and you go in there, and you want to set the temperature, but you can't anymore because they pried the barrier over the thermostat off the wall, or broke it off the wall. You go into the sauna, and this was one that we just got a complaint on, and you close the door, and somebody has poured water on the sauna to the degree that they fried the heating unit. Then you get the heating unit fixed, and they go in there with their personal oils and pour it on the stones because they want to smell this. Be damned the next person that comes in. Now you got to clean the stones. You follow? I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not criticizing. I'm saying we do not have policing power on this POA staff or this POA board, but somebody does. All we can do is call and say, I've got a property owner vandalizing my building. I've got a property owner that is misbehaving. So there's a law enforcement in Monroe and Loudoun County. Don't make us call. Please, I'm begging you. You want me to, no, hell, you don't even.
Oh, stop.
I'm begging you.
Oh, God.
I'm begging you. I'm telling you, your friends and neighbors are going to be so embarrassed and so put out about getting caught. But it's getting out of control, folks. When you hear them talking about how to sneak past a starter to get a free round of golf, tell them don't do that. When you hear them walk in the wellness center and say, wait till she turns her head to the left, then you go to the right to sneak into the exercise machine. Oh, I know how you can play pickleball. All you got to do is just don't sign in. It's happening a lot, folks, and you need to tell your friends, don't get caught. The dumbass Pat White is saying, please don't get caught. Don't even do it. I'm begging you. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, and for that performance, the Academy Award goes to Pat White.
I don't want anybody to be embarrassed.
Any others? I have one, then you can go, Don. And mine is just it's more of an announcement. There is an invasive carp symposium on July 13th, and there is it's going to be at 6 p.m. at the venue. It's out on the POA website under the Asian carp tab, and there's probably going to be other communications as well in the telegram, but just to let everybody know that. July 13th. Go ahead, Don. We're past our time, so.
Yeah. Pat, I'll get down on my knees with you because you're 100% correct. Okay? One thing that I don't even know if the board is aware of, there's a rental property here in which a contractor is using it for its employees. And what's going on there, from what I've been told, ain't pretty, okay? So I think there's a lot of things going on with respect to rental properties that the POA board isn't even aware of. All right, that's not the reason I came up here. And I know we're at the end of the time. Number one, the ChatGPT, I have been using that myself. It is absolutely phenomenal. It's a great IA. I am in the process, along with some others, of putting together a tournament of champions, hopefully getting started for next year. It'll be called Tocado, which is taken from the first two letters of each of the golf courses, Tanasi, Kahiti, and Tokwa. What we're asking of the board to consider in the rebuilding of Tanasi is some room for trophy cases. We're not asking you to pay for the cases. Each of the individual athletic groups will be paying for that themselves. But we need room for those cases, whether it be next year or the following year after that. I'm asking that you would please consider that.
Okay.
That's it. That's all I've got.
Very good. Thank
Time
you.
to go home.
Yeah. Anything else from anybody? All right, with that, this meeting is adjourned.